Hello, I'm Toycat, and welcome back to the second channel geography video, except it's a live stream instead. Just a little bit of a fun way of doing long form content that maybe you enjoy, because today we're talking about Europe. And if you look at Europe on a map, or the EU on a map, or any body which vaguely correlates to Europe, you might assume that it's pretty evenly populated throughout. This is a mistake when looking at anywhere in the world, with very, very few exceptions, because if most of Europe's population, is actually spread into very specific urban cores. In fact, if Europe was evenly spread, then Sweden, Norway, and Finland would be absolutely giant by population. The UK would be tiny, and a lot of these countries in the middle would be tiny. Although that's actually quite kind of true right now. Like if you look at the former Yugoslav republics, their population lines up with their land area just about almost. But a lot of countries are very densely packed, and a lot of countries aren't very densely packed. And you'll learn about them in today's video, where we go through the 50 largest metropolitan areas in the Europe area. This isn't just the EU. Just because, like, if you want to go EU but include the UK, there's no easy way to say it. So we'll just say any city that is in Europe the continent, going by the normal definition, somehow including Istanbul, then these are all of the biggest metropolitan areas in Europe. We're going to use metropolitan area just because I prefer it, and, like, it's an easier system for Europe, it seems. And also, I want to clarify before we start with Volgograd, the 50 biggest city, with just the interesting little thing here that, like, oh yeah, did you know within the 50 biggest cities does not include a single city in Ireland. Dublin is 52nd, it seems. Does not include Helsinki, any city in Finland, as a result, which is 54th, I guess that'd be. Not a single Norwegian city, and that's like kind of shocking to me that, like, oh yeah, Oslo, Helsinki, Dublin, none of those cities are in the 50 biggest areas in Europe. And you might realize that those cities have a better name recognition than Volgograd, the 50 biggest city in Europe. And you can tell that this thing's live because, honestly, Volgograd, I know, is here somewhere, but I didn't know until it showed up on the map that it was right there. Volgograd is a city that I know very little about, which is why we're going to go on a little road map trip, and I can say, hey, Volgograd is, it used to have another name, because grad means city in Russian, if I'm not mistaken, and it had a huge role in the World War II, if I'm not mistaken, but the name, like, escapes me. Like, the thing is, this is the 50 biggest population area in Europe, but because it's, like, Russia's 7th biggest city or something like that.
Is it two cat tax on this channel? Woman shrugging. Either way, here is cat tax, whether it's still toy cat tax or two cat tax.
Thank you so much,
Thanks
Amanda
for
Ray.
streaming.
So this is the thing about live streaming that's a bit different. People can leave some messages, some people can be nice, some people can leave informative messages, and it's a whole thing. But yeah, basically, grad is like the extension they use to have cities in Russian, and as a result of that, like, this is again, like, Leningrad, Stalingrad, etc., grads. There's a lot of cities named that way, and this one used to have a famous apparently it's Stalingrad. I don't think it is Stalingrad. I thought that was St. Petersburg, but maybe I get honestly all of them in Russia mixed up. But Volgograd is an absolutely huge city in Russian history. But beyond the Russian history of it being huge, and I've seen the war where, like, oh yeah, there was a salient around this. A lot of people ate each other in the streets or something like that here. Beyond that, when you look around it, it's like, this isn't a very iconic city. Its history is iconic, but even though, also, was that a bar called Selfie Bar, by the way? Did I read that? Yeah, hashtag Selfie Bar. So yeah, it's a very modern European city, but you forget about it. Biggest European city? Jomama, got him. Nice one. Thank you, Ed Potler, for the Cat Tax thing. And also, Cat Gale, hello. Super chats on or for donations for YouTube. Yeah, because it's like, I've just set up an entirely different account to do it that way. So Super Chat only shows up in chat, and the things down below, they show up here. So apparently Random Malicious says this is Stalingrad. Now we know. That's a lot easier. And that's the 50th biggest city in Europe. What's the 49th biggest city in Europe, you ask? It is, look, actually I remembered it, but then, like, as soon as we scroll down, I lost it all. But if Volgograd is 50th, then 49th is Belgrade. So Belgrade is a city I have personal experience with. We should have just started on 49, honestly. You know, want to redo and pretend that we started on 49? So what's the 49th biggest city in Europe? Because I know nothing about Volgograd or Stalingrad or whatever you want to call it. Well, the 49th biggest city in Europe is the capital of Serbia, Belgrade. So this is the only city that shows up in the entirety of the former Yugoslav area. So, a lot of countries, this is the one city that shows up at 49th, bear in mind. But yeah, Belgrade is a pretty big city that I have visited myself. There's a few things it's famous for. Nikola Tesla is, of course, one of them. But it's also like during the times of the Ottomans and even the Roman Empire splits, it was a huge thing in Europe of like the midpoint between them. So it's a hugely historic city. But if you go there now, there's kind of like a interesting divide that most cities have like a poor side and a rich side across the river. Kind of true there. Also, hi IBX2Cat, you remember me of YouTuber IBX2Cat. Do you know him? I do not know that guy whatsoever. I have not heard of him. Friendos. But yeah, so basically, if you look at Belgrade, it's got this really interesting thing where the river doesn't divide it into poor or rich or, you know, like ghetto and not ghetto. It divides into the old city. Again, look at the city grid around here. Like if you want to go anywhere, including McDonald's, as it is apparently called right here. That's just the way you put it into the language that they've got right here. Because they use a different script in Belgrade. The Cyrillic script, I'm pretty sure, but don't quote me on that one. But yeah, so like this is like very old city streets that have been updated to modern times. Whereas if we go across the river on the other side, it is blocks. It is very much Soviet era architecture. It's not actually, they never were part of the Soviet Union. Clear to clarify, Yugoslavia was communist, but one of the non-aligned communist countries. But it's blocks over here, just like blocks on blocks and blocks and blocks. A grid system that might be reminiscent of America, but here it's just a reminiscent of like, they built lots of things and they built it in the most efficient way, which was lots of grids. I think I mentioned this, but like when I was going home from Belgrade, I decided to just walk through some of these blocks to like go between two buses, and I was just like, my god, this is like block after block after block of the same looking thing over and over again. It's a reminder that like, yep, you know, in Eastern Europe, the block thing doesn't like correlate to like, oh yeah, an efficient way of living. It's like, yep, these were built a long time ago. Sometimes they're very good, but they have that like sad attachment to them. So yeah, also it's worth noting there's a giant castle over here in Belgrade. It's a nice little city, in my opinion. Subby uses the Latin script. I think they've been switching over to Latin, right? But if I'm not mistaken, so this is Belgrade Fortress. This is something else I checked out. I think I was in Belgrade for a day or something. It was a very wacky time. But you know what else is a wacky time? I can't leave this. You know, how do we get out there? Let me leave Belgrade Fortress. I don't want to be here anymore. So you know what else is a wacky time? Google Maps. Going through some issue. So let's go to London City Airport. This is from a previous video, isn't it? But let's get out there and let's go on to the 48th. Ooh, a castle. The 48th biggest city in Europe, because if 50 is Volgograd and 49 is Belgrade, 48 is a really weird contrast because they're both very much on the east side. Zurich is right here in arguably the center of it. Hey, thank you, Izzy Alice. See, in this case, it's wonderful. Google Maps always has an issue, so it's chicken nugget. It's true. It's true. Thank you so much, Izzy Alice. And also, thank you to the residents of Zurich, because Zurich is such a... Again, like, of the cities so far, this is the only one I'd say that is widely known outside of Europe. Like Belgrade, again, and Stalingrad, of course, they have the historic thing going for them. But in terms of modern day, like, accessibility, Zurich is very, very famous. And it's a very interesting city, in my opinion, because, one, it has some of the highest costs of living in Europe. It might be the most expensive city in Europe. If you pay less than 10 euros for a Burger King or McDonald's, something's gone crazy about that one. And if you look around the city, it's very, very, very modern European. Again, that's a weird thing to say, but it's a super, super modern city. And also, it has a lot of international business. They have like a huge insurance industry set up there. They have, very international connections, the biggest airport in Switzerland. And as a result, Zurich is this huge urban area that actually kind of like makes you question the canton system in Switzerland as a whole. Because this one city in Switzerland has something like, the metropolitan area of this one city in Switzerland has, according to this, 1.4 million people. Switzerland has roughly 8 million people, which means this one canton contains within it like a giant proportion of the overall population, and that's in a supposedly federal system. So the way you gotta balance that out is interesting. The fact that Zurich is not just a city but also some surrounding mountains, also very interesting. And it's a beautiful city. It's a very expensive, beautiful city. Because Switzerland is expensive, large cities are expensive. When you put a large city inside of Switzerland, you get an expensive one. An expensive one with good public transport, though, has to be said. But let's move on from this. The 48th biggest city. Glad to catch a stream on your second channel. It's been a while since I've done this. I'm kind of like rolling through this, just like seeing how it goes. It's gonna be some fun. Zurich is the California of Switzerland, says Cameron Sinclair. I like that one as an explanation. Yeah, Zurich is the California of Switzerland. It makes you question the whole functioning of everything together. But if I can give you one positive comment as like, if you ever visit Switzerland, keep this in mind. Switzerland is, so of the major cities in Europe, Zurich is perhaps the best connected airport to a city, of like a major airport to a major city. There is a train that can connect you, but there's also a tram if you really want to. So like taking a tram to the airport is a cool thing in my opinion. Thank you, MC Bass. What's the best city in Latin America and how many languages do you speak? Sadly, one language, and the best city in Latin America. I haven't experienced any personally, but I would guess Buenos Aires. Like by all the metrics combined. But it comes to like I like Mexico City a lot based on what I've seen. So it comes down to what you count as Latin America and what you desire in a city, really. I need to get out more. Wait, this is Absol. Oh darn, I'm giving people tourist advice. Tourist advice for 2022. You do not get out before that. Are we Welsh? Are we something else for 2Cat? Well, if you were Welsh, I could tell you all about your country, friends. I don't know, actually. I guess it might have to be a different little in-joke for this channel. You know, there's a lot of things I haven't considered about the fact that I have a second channel, but like the live stream audience seems to be mostly the same as the first channel. It's something we should think about while we talk about the 47th biggest city, Prague. So Prague, in Czechia, by the way, their capital and largest city, is a huge city that is interesting for a lot of reasons. The historic side of things is huge. Like, you know, I don't know how to say their castle name. I'm sorry, I'm the worst at this one. This is the whack thing about Europe. Like, I can tell you lots of places, but I can't say anything besides the big castle in Zurich. There's two like famous, like super old things. One is they have a giant castle. I mean, like a giant castle with a giant cathedral on a hill. You know, these houses. This house is the castle now. It's a nice castle. But anyway, you can see very European in that way. And also this bridge right here. This is the 14th century structure of views, but that is also... There's famous bridges in Prague. I'm pretty sure it's that one, but... No, it's this one, as it turns out. This bridge right here is used in so many different, things to signify, like, old Europe. And so, yeah, the Charles Bridge, very famous old bridge in Europe. But it's not just famous for old reasons. Prague is also super... Except I'm 1/6 wife here instead of 1/300, says Cat Girl. You're moving up the hierarchy. The thing about the Charles Bridge and the things about Prague as a whole is when the Cold War, the Iron Curtain fell. Prague is Eastern Europe by East-West standards, not because it physically is in Eastern Europe, it's very much a Central European country, but they're Eastern Europe because they were formerly communist. Every Eastern European country that's even close to the West hates being called Eastern European, but it's, in terms of East-West divide, in terms of Iron Curtain, they were on the communist side of the Iron Curtain, which meant that as soon as they stopped being communist, Prague became a city which was known as, like, the party city of Eastern Europe. It was cheap to go there because their economy had to recover, etc., but they had this, like, huge party reputation. So if I give you a random... Actually, wait. First of all, here's Hooters. They have one of the only, like, 4 Hooters in Europe. One of them is here in the Czech Republic. In fact, actually, 2 of them are here in Prague. There's one here, and then I bet I could find the other one. I know it's, like, not far away from the first one for some reason. Don't ask me how I know both of the Hooters locations in Prague. But as well as that, there's a lot of... It's a very young, cool, trendy city. It's got a very young population for a major city in Europe. And, yeah, this is Prague. There's so many interesting things that I could point out about it historically. There's so many interesting things I could point out about it, like as a tourist, as a person who enjoys lively, fun cities. But I'll just say for now that it's this really fun blend of the two. And it's one of my favorite cities in Europe. In fact, I've got this little bowl right here, right? The reason I drink out of a fishbowl, sometimes with 20 straws, is because when I was in Prague, they sold something called... This is the first time I ever saw it. It's called like a party bucket. It's like the equivalent of $20, but you get some ridiculous number of liters, like 2 or 3 liters of, a drink of your choice. And they just give you like as many straws as people at your table and go, drink it, you filthy animals. I like it a lot. I'm gonna, This drink tastes like Prague. But you know what doesn't taste like Prague? The 45th, 6th. Counting these manually is hard. So Donetsk in Ukraine. Again, it's kind of funny about this one that, like, there are so many big cities in Ukraine and Russia because between them, Ukraine and Russia are some of the biggest the biggest countries in Europe. But most of them aren't very famous. Like, everyone knows Kiev in Ukraine. Everyone knows Moscow in Russia. But even though a lot of people live in Donetsk, and indeed we're going to see other cities in Ukraine here, what can you tell me about Donetsk, friends? Because I'll be honest with you, these videos are about my opinion. This is about me explaining what I know. My default knowledge about Donetsk only goes down to there was a separatist revolution, and even right now it might still be controlled. I don't imagine it is right now, but for a very long time it was controlled by a separate breakaway republic. It is a very Russian city. I mean, look, if you look at it on a map right here, you can see how, like, there's Donetsk, there is the Russian border. They are 70 kilometers apart. And bear in mind, Ukraine has a high Russian proportion anyway. And when you're that close to Russia, it's going to be crazy. Also, they're really close to Rostov-on-Don, which is another big city in Russia. And yeah, there's like a huge urban area right here that isn't very well known about, that isn't very famous. Okay, oops. Isn't very well known about, isn't very famous. And I find that to be very fascinating on a lot of levels. But yeah, this is Donetsk. This is a, I might even be saying it wrong, honestly. In Donetsk, I only know Shakhtar. So someone knows the sports team, it sounds like. Russian ethno-linguistic minority city occupied by pro-Russian breakaway rebels. So it's still occupied by pro-Russian rebels, is it? Let's show you around this city, shall we? Because I want to look into every city at least once, give you a feel for it. Again, this city doesn't feel like it's the 46th biggest conglomeration of people in Europe, right? This feels like we've gone into, like, maybe a medium-sized city, but definitely not one of the largest in Europe. Like, when you compare this to a Helsinki, a Dublin, etc., it's not as iconic. And that's the thing about Europe is, unlike, say, the US, where most of the big cities people have heard of and know about, in Europe, the difference between fame of a city and population of a city is much, much, much more stark. As I hope Donetsk proves beyond belief, right? Like, what are we looking at right here? You know what? Let's look at these ladies cross the road, and let's look at this man wait for the Google car to go past before he can. He doesn't know what Google is, but he's angry that that's in his city. You know, that's what I think. Anyway, so yeah, Russian city, Russian linguistic city of Ukrainians who are Russian inside of it. Very wacky thing. You should stream IBX Toycat live streams because it'll be your true core audience, says CatGow. I've got to do that sometime. That's a good idea. KGB said Donetsk about the Russian presence. Hey, J-Beams, you know, you got me good there. City full of places, be a good street view experience. You know, actually, yeah, let's see what the city hall is. Let's see if we can do that from the map. So there's the Donetsk Art Museum. Here's the park. Here's the Cosmos. That sounds cool. It's a circus. Okay, go to Donetsk for the circus. Ignore the breakaway rebels that might kidnap you. I mean, they probably won't. They've got other things to be caring about. But go for that. What is Big John? It is a pizza restaurant. Go for the pizza restaurant, have a fun laugh at the circus, and then, hey, Timotej, take a look at Soy Lake of my hometown. That would make my day. If it is one of the 50th biggest cities, I got you covered, friend. If not, I don't know where it is, friendo machine. But you know what? I do know, in the UK, Newcastle Sunderland, the 45th. We're just going to stop counting. We'll just be like, you know what? The one after next. So Newcastle Sunderland is the 45th biggest population centre in all of Europe. So Newcastle is a really weird one to me because Newcastle, Sunderland, and Durham are like all inherently connected, but also there's a place called Washington here. If I'm not mistaken, George Washington has like a family line link to Washington, which is now just like this terrible place. No offense to Washington, but like Ritz fish and chips and dial a curry and yummy Chinese takeaway. Oh, proving my point that I made in a previous video that in the UK there's always an Indian, an Italian, a fish and chips, and like the standard things are all here. 3.5 stars, 4.1 stars, and 4.2. Ritz fish and chips. I might have written them off too early. But anyway, so Newcastle and Sunderland are two cities that actually they share like they share a lot of things, even though they're considered separate places sometimes. In terms of like a jobs area, it's kind of the same thing. If I'm not mistaken, it's called like the Tynes on Ware Metro, because they've got, if we click on one of the stations right here, if we click on a better one of their stations with the metro symbols, they've got one of the UK's only 4 metros. I would wager, okay, this is an underground station with a picture of a hotel. Like, for real, let me just show you this right here. The picture for this station is a picture of a hotel bed. But you know what? Ignoring the fact that that's a thing, they do have one of the 4 metros in the UK. It's barely a metro. It doesn't show up, though. Again, Google doesn't care about their metro, but you know what? I do. So that's the thing that makes Newcastle kind of interesting. It's got only one of those. It has its own airport, sort of. It's not very busy or big, but you can fly to it. And between Newcastle and Sunderland, you get this very interesting English part. It's technically part of England, but again, it's so close to Scotland. Population around 2,000, so yeah, Slovakia. I mean, you never know. You might just make the list one day, Mr. Timotej. But the interesting thing about Newcastle and Sunderland is that they're very different to the rest of the England, you could say. Like, people like to be like, England's one big body, and it's the easiest recognizable component of the UK. But Newcastle and Sunderland are very distinct. They make up the northeast. The people there, they sound very distinctly, if you're not familiar with accents, they might sound more Scottish than English. And again, that's not actually how it is. Anyone in the UK, in England's going to be like, no, the Geordies don't sound like Scots at all. They don't. I can't do a Geordie accent. Also, Sunderland, if I'm not mistaken, was the most unanticipated Leave voting area in the UK. They really do not like the EU. And I don't know why I've got that fact stored in my mind. But that's what I know about Newcastle and Sunderland. I've got a friend in Redcar. Oh, I love that, yeah, there's a place... I think there's a couple of places in the UK called Redcar, but the fact that like this place is called Redcar, it's like that should be a gamified spy. That should not be a way of describing an entire metropolitan area. But sometimes it sort of is. Anyway, so yeah, Sunderland is another interesting city by itself for a lot of reasons, but we won't go into them. Also, I feel like Durham, kind of got meanly out of the was meanly not included in this one, but that's not my problem. My problem is the 44th biggest metropolitan area, Porto. So Porto, again, I feel like in Portugal, everyone knows Lisbon's the capital, but Porto's the kind of second city in Lisbon that isn't so widely known about, despite the fact that it is very, very populated. In fact, if you look at Portugal's population, it really does make a kind of corridor down the coast of the country, from like Porto to Coimbra to Lisbon down to Faro. There's this they all connect in a very straight line, which means that getting between Porto and Lisbon, despite the fact that they're actually, I don't think they are that far apart. They're 250 kilometers apart, about 267 if we want to be precise. Although, realistically, if you go by land, it's a bit more. Lisbon does the sad bull thing, right? Says Cat Girl. That's, if I'm not mistaken, that's a Spanish city, Valencia, Sevilla. It's one of the two. It's a Spanish... Portugal, they're good. And actually, since we're here, did I miss Sophia? Says Ultimate Comp BG. If it's on the list, we haven't got onto it yet. I don't remember all 50 cities. We'll learn as we go along here. But the interesting thing about Porto is that as a city, it's like the second fiddle in Portugal. Even though there's a huge number of people that live there, it's not so widely known about. They have good public transit. I've looked into going there before. And also... because so Portugal has a national airline. This is the only reason I know this. There are flights between Porto and Lisbon, despite them being 250 kilometers away from each other, which I find fascinating. And also it means that the very cheapest flights you can find from the UK take you from London to Porto, Porto to Lisbon, then Lisbon to wherever you want to go. That's an interesting fact that I bet you don't care about, but now you know regardless. So yeah, Porto. What do I know about it? I know that it's meant to be a nice city, and it's the second biggest in Portugal, which is interesting because Portugal has a very small population, but it's more densely packed in cities than, say, Finland or an Ireland is, based on the fact that it's got not only its first biggest city, but also its second biggest. Look how nice this roundabout is. Do you have roundabouts this nice in your city? Porto is actually named the country of Portugal. Oh, I have it. Yeah, I've heard that. The Porto used to be the capital, and Portugal was named after the capital of it. But, you jogged my memory. Or... I made that up after you said it. Who knows for sure? You'll have to fact check that one. I want to go to Portugal, practice my terrible Portuguese, says Aquazol. Let's do it. I'm late, Warsaw Bino will be. I mean, Warsaw is a very appropriate name for a city, but we're going to talk about Sheffield, the South Yorkshire metropolitan area, which is the 43rd biggest metropolitan area. We're just kind of winging it at this point. So Sheffield is a city, again, so Yorkshire is this huge thing, you might know of Lancashire and Yorkshire. Yorkshire is split up into so many different counties. There is North Yorkshire, which, if I'm not mistaken, is where this stuff is. There's an East Yorkshire and a West Yorkshire. West Yorkshire, I think, is Leeds and Bradford and stuff. South Yorkshire is Sheffield, and North York again, the area that Sheffield would cover Yorkshire would cover if it was one thing. So Sheffield is kind of the entrance to Yorkshire, the entrance to what Northerners would tell you is the North. I would argue it starts at Nottingham, or even as low down as Leicester. But Sheffield is a city that everyone definitively agrees is the North, even though it's kind of a thing. So interesting enough, besides that, Sheffield is a city that's like got this very interesting mix of like being super rural working class on the outsides, but in the center it is a wealthy city. Also, this isn't relevant to everyone else, but it's the fun facts I happen to know. It happens to be they happen to have one of the very few Taco Bells in the UK. So if we search Taco Bell Sheffield, you can find the first Taco Bell I think I ever went to in the UK. Maybe the second one actually. There we go. That's right. Taco Bell UK. Now you know what we're doing right here. Oh yeah, this is not Taco Bell. This is a random jewelry store. I feel like I'm stuck in here too. But yeah, so basically Sheffield is a very unique. It's also got a lot of universities, I think too. But like there's two big universities in Sheffield Hallam as well as Sheffield University, the University of Sheffield. Also, there's a lot of campuses of the two of them, and they're both considered pretty good, as I understand it. So yeah, now you know. Fun fact: Sheffield. It's a northern city, but it's like the south of the north, but also maybe the middle of the north. Also, it's very close to Rotherham, which is a place that you don't know what Rotherham's famous for, but it's next to Sheffield, and Sheffield's nice. You know, we won't discuss the things that happen in Rotherham. We will discuss the things that happen in Turin. So Turin, if I'm not getting my cities mixed up, and indeed I'm not, is a a city I've actually visited myself. And it's kind of one of the northern cities of Italy. Italy, again, every country has something in Europe has something that makes them like super weird compared to the norm. Italy's like the 5th richest country in Europe, I do believe. Like you go like, oh yeah, the UK, France, and Germany are like the 3 powerhouses. And then after that, you know, not per person, like overall. And then you've got Spain, which pulls up 4th place nicely. And then Italy's kind of off there in 5th. Sometimes it's in 4th. It depends on which measurement you use. But basically, Italy is this weird like kind of like country that is very wealthy in some areas of the north, like Venice, Milan, Turin are very wealthy, but the south is very much the opposite. And Turin is one of those super wealthy cities. Like when I went, it was like, yeah, this is, you know, like this is not poor town like you might expect. If we show you some of this, because we're doing street view in every city, I tell you, this is a bad idea. Let's go to the Palazzo Madama. That sounds like a fun place. Look how nice. Look, they've got history in Turin. Nowhere else in Italy is there history. It's all right here in the middle of Turin. Okay, here's the Piazza San Carlo to give you a better feel for it. Turin is a very like kind of I wouldn't quite describe it as fully Italian, but it's very much like the old historic Italian stuff that you get used to. They got good pizza, but I mean like that's just describing everywhere in the world, I would say. But like it's very Italian style in that way. It's different to the rest of Italy in terms of a lot of their tastes, and also because it's so far north and because it's so wealthy, it's very well connected to a lot of ski resorts. So fun fact for you right there. So yeah, this is Turin. I wish I could tell you more about it. When I went there, I found a vending machine store and I was like, Japan and Turin, Italy, the only places we've got covered. Also, as a geography student and geography geek, this channel's amazing. Keep it up, mate, says Sean Gyukuhi. Thank you very much, Sean. And also, one derp child. Birmingham should be an enclave in the north-south divide. That's how I personally see it. Like, Birmingham's its whole own separate thing. By the way, to miss Lisbon or Porto, we went through Porto. Lisbon, I think, is coming up after we go through Kharkiv in Ukraine. So again, Kharkiv, Ukraine, is a city that's very close to the Russian border. It has the problem of being very Russian linguistically, despite being Ukrainian ethnically. It was one of these cities taken over by separatists, and first of all, I mean, look, this is their metro symbol, kind of fun. Second of all, if we show you a little bit of it, you'll feel like, oh yeah, this is one of those cities that, by looking at it alone, you can't be 100% sure, like, so Ukraine or Russia, question mark? Which is one of the problems, like, Ukraine has as a country building an identity. When so many of your people have such close ties to Russia and speak Russian, it makes it very easy for Russia to play some bad games with you, steal some territory, threaten to steal some more, send in some, you know, volunteers to fight against you. And yeah, that's the sad thing. But Kharkiv is one of those cities that's like, I've always wanted to visit. It's the biggest city in the east of Ukraine, because Ukraine is, again, very much an east-west country, not a north-south country. In the west of the country, you've got Kyiv and Lviv, or Kiev. It's funny, Google Maps has changed Kiev to Kyiv, which is the spelling that they want you to use. But point we'll move on to later. Kharkiv is an interesting city because of the fact that it's like the east of Ukraine, a very different place, it's differently developed, it's less international. It's, again, very much more Russian focused than internationally focused. And, you know what, let's show you a McDonald's. because that's a good way to end this one. Kharkiv, it has McDonald's. 24-hour McDonald's. You know, I don't have a 24-hour McDonald's near me. Or I did. It's probably not 24 hours anymore. Oh wait, it's 0 hours now because they shut them all down in the UK. Guess you gotta fly to Kharkiv if you want to get used to McDonald's going on. Also, boy, do you explain Valletta. It's funny, everyone's asking like the country questions about their country. I mean, if you worked out this list and where we're going on it, you'd know that after Kharkiv, we've got Marseille. So Marseille is a city in France. France has a lot of very big cities, by the way, it's worth noting. So Marseille is over here, in kind of like the south of France. So the things about Marseille that I know include nothing. It's interesting, actually. Yeah, I can tell you like a little bit about some of the other French cities, but Marseille is one that's like, it's big. There are cheap flights to their airport, so it comes up a lot in my secondary knowledge. It's one of these cities that is connected poorly to Paris. It's one of the few cities you would fly to in Paris as opposed to taking the train on average, which is maybe interesting to you. And besides that, what can I tell you about Marseille? We'll find out by going on Google Street View to a Burger King of all places. Yeah, this is a disgrace, this is. But yeah, it's French. Did you know that? It's in the south of France, it's in the Riviera region, so it's very like hot. It's like Mediterranean, which is weird for France, as France goes from like a UK climate in the north to like full-on Mediterranean with boats in the south. And it's kind of fun. The 24-hour McDonald's near me is scary AF. How can a McDonald's be scary? I've been to America and I have experienced some, but it still makes me question, like, what did they do so wrong? Also, there's a place called O Tacos Marcel. I need to know, what is the O Tacos Marcel? Do you know there's something called a French taco? I think this might be Mexican tacos, but there's something called a French taco. So there you go. There's your trivia for Marseille. Marseille. Oh god, it's not Marseille. It's Marseille. That's how you can tell that I've never heard it said before in my life. Which is interesting because it's the 40... Oh god, we lost count. But you know what we haven't lost count of? By the way, I love videos. By the way, it's pronounced Marseille. So, Marseille? Marseille, says Aiden. See, that shows you my knowledge of the French. It's... Honestly, this is like... Okay, bear in mind, I live... less than 1,000 kilometers away, right? Yeah, I live just under 1,000 kilometers away from the city. I've never heard it. I've never heard the name said. I've read the name a few times on websites, but it's never come up despite being the 40-something. Yeah, like 42nd, maybe I'm going to guess. Biggest city in Europe, which is interesting. Second biggest city in France. By metropolitan area, I don't believe it is. France also has Lyon. France also has... France just has Paris and Lyon, apparently. So it's the third biggest by metropolitan area. Checkmate, friends. So next up, we've got Greater Glasgow. So Glasgow is an interesting one because everyone who lives in Glasgow calls it Glasgow, but Glasgow's the more like what everyone else says. But I'm going to call it Glasgow, and I'm going to talk to you about the merchant city. So no, Glasgow's a really interesting city. First of all, because of the fact that it's like Scotland's biggest city, but also it's like most of the large number of people live here in Scotland, at least in the city limits. We'll find out if it's in the metropolitan area. But despite being Scotland's biggest city, it's like very small by overall UK standards and very small by European standards usually. I mean, not by this one. So it's like, but like it's big. Sorry, I should say the rest of Scotland's very small. Glasgow is the only big-ish city. I mean, if it's 40, that's kind of big. But the thing that makes it so fascinating is that Glasgow has serious problems. Like, as a representative for Scotland, as the place, the second largest place that people visit, because more people might go to Edinburgh, it's a problem-filled city. The average life expectancy in Glasgow is just Glasgow. It's just significantly lower than the national average, not only for the UK, but also for Scotland. The averages, like there's a lot of the house prices in Glasgow go down against the national average. Glasgow's a city with like a lot of problems kind of connected to it, which is sad. It's not what you want. It's not what we're going for, but it's a thing. But to make things better, I've been to Glasgow twice, maybe thrice now. I can tell you that they have a passport office. I can tell you they've got a pretty bridge. Look at this bridge right here, the squiggly bridge. Look at this. Tell me this doesn't make up for dying 10 years before your peers. Tell me it doesn't make it better, friends, because I don't agree with you. But no, yeah, Glasgow is a city which is, I would say, like, from a tourist sense, not the best. Don't ask why I've been there 3 times if so. I would say from a living there perspective, not the best, but it is the single densest. Glasgow life expectancy is 71.6 for men. So yeah, that's interesting because in cities, cities are usually the future. Glasgow's got this weird thing where it's like kind of not in a lot of ways. And now you know. Fun facts with Toy Cat. So yeah, also they've got a lot of train stations that go through it. Also, it has one of the 4 undergrounds in the UK, and it's very cute. It's just one big circle. Man, why doesn't Google want to do underground things for this? Very sad. I have a subway card, so I can ride the Glasgow subway. It's just one circle. There's only 2 ways to go. Every other metro's got this confusing thing of like, oh, where are we going? Glasgow's metro. Are you going clockwise or counterclockwise? No matter where your destination is, you'll get there no matter which platform you get on. It might just take you a bit longer. It's handy, it's convenient, but do you know what else is handy and convenient? The 40th, someone should count this for me, biggest city in in Europe, Copenhagen. So Copenhagen, I think it's actually Copenhagen if you're going in the Danish pronunciation, but I won't. So Copenhagen is a really interesting city by Europe because the idea of a city having an enclave inside of it is very rare in Europe. But if you look, Frederiksberg right here is entirely enclosed within Copenhagen. So the city size for Copenhagen is actually much smaller than normal. And the other interesting thing about it is there's a enclave within the rest of it. I actually don't know where precisely it is on a map. I'd have to find it, but it's Christian Haven or something. There's this place where people think it's legal to smoke weed, and so they smoke weed openly. And or like they do lots of other drugs too. They commit a lot of crimes there, and because they think it's its own little country, and it's not. But the police are just like, they think that's true. It's easier not to enforce it, so it has like a little bit of truth to it. So some interesting tourist facts for you. Copenhagen is a country that I was actually Copenhagen's the city I was most recently going to visit, and then couldn't because of the current scandal. I was due to fly to Copenhagen on the 14th. Of March, and on the 13th of March, Copenhagen closed their borders to non-Danish citizens, which meant that like if I'd have flown a day later, I would have gone through some serious issues. But if I'd have gone a day earlier, like basically what I'm trying to say is I was going to go to Copenhagen, and then I didn't, so that's nice, I guess. Do you know what else is nice? The city of Copenhagen. It's the biggest city in Denmark. It's the biggest city in all of the Nordics. And there's so many delightful things. I mean, first of all, this is always my go-to. Here's a nice train station, right? Copenhagen HBF, Copenhagen Central Station. Super nice, right? It's got a McDonald's in. There we go. Tick that one off for another city. But like also 7-Eleven's huge in Scandinavia. I love that personally. I love 7-Eleven. Why won't you expand to the UK, 7-Eleven? I need you here. But if we leave the train station like we're going to do right now, you can see how right in the center of the city, there is just a giant theme park. Like it's like an old style European sort of thing. Like these aren't very common outside of Europe as best I can tell. But there's Tivoli and you can just, can we just go inside? We can. Look, it's a theme park with a Cold Stone Creamery. I know that's American because I've had a conversation with an American about that recently. But like, if you look around this place, it's like, oh yeah, it's a theme park in the city. It's very nice. So yeah, I really love Copenhagen for that reason. It's one of my favorite cities that I visited. I've been here twice. I love it a lot. There's a lot of nice things I can say from a tourist perspective, from a historic perspective, because Scandinavia has united under different banners at different times. Generally speaking, Denmark's been like the kingmaker in like all of those sorts of unions. So Copenhagen has like this huge historic importance in terms of amongst the Nordics. This was usually the city to go to. And yeah, nowadays it's interesting because they're outside of like the Netherlands, this is like the most bike-friendly city. If we pick a random road, this one right here, for instance, you can see how... Is that a bike lane that the cars are on? There's no bike lane here. If we pick a random road that isn't this road, like this one right here, if we pick a random road that isn't either of these two roads, like this one right... Okay, we look down at this road from the ceiling, there's probably a bike lane on there somewhere. No, it was the first city I went to where there isn't just a bike every now and then going past. It's like a bike and then a bike behind that bike, a bike... You know, like there's like proper bike traffic in Copenhagen. We don't have 7-Elevens in Houston either. You need to get you some 7-Elevens. It's an amazing... You know, again, I like convenient stuff. I like just... Especially... Okay, here we go. Look at that. It's a bike lane. And not just like... Again, it's not a bike lane. It's not, you know, like a bike path or a bike thing like that. It's a bike lane. Look at this. It's segregated like it should be. You know, segregation is good when it comes to cycling. That is the thing you want. And the fact that we can see 1 cyclist, 2 cyclists, 3 cyclists, just here, next to this 7-Eleven, sponsored. I wish it was sponsored. 7-Eleven, give me money, or a 7-Eleven. I'll take either. I'll give you my money if you give me a 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven. That's all I want in my life, friends. It's only, by the way, in Europe, 7-Eleven only seems to exist in the Nordics, as best I can tell. Tell me if I'm wrong, and I'll go to the city where I'm wrong. So next up on our list, after Copenhagen, we've got Nizhny Novgorod. A city... Should we just be honest here? Like, when it comes to Russia, again, everyone knows Moscow, everyone knows St. Petersburg, but Nizhny Novgorod, we're going to just say, it's kind of not in Europe. Sure, it meets the technical definition of being in Europe, but does it really? So this is like the furthest east city on our list, and it is also in Russia. So this must be incorrectly, like, translated, right? Power vitamins? What? How is this power vitamins? What am I looking at right here? So this, what am I? You know what? I'm just gonna take a drink, and I'll say just as many useful things as if I tried to tell you about this city. It's on the Trans-Siberian Railroad, I think.
Love your videos. Started with geography videos and you got me back into Minecraft tongue.
It's funny how often I hear that, like, that way around. Because I don't promote my channels on each other, because, like, whatever, you can find them whichever way you want to. Love me some vitamins. Good luck as always, sketch looking into Russia/Asia. Also, but yeah, like, thanks so much. I think that's so cool that you found the videos that way. It's funny how often that happens. Oh, here's a statue of Peter the Great. The same Peter the Great that St. Petersburg is named after. That's a nice statue of Peter the Great. It's gone a lot warmer since that last Street View, huh? It's gone a lot warmer. So yeah, that's Nizhny Novgorod. I wish I could tell you more, but I'd just be making it up. How about we just make up facts? Did you know Putin was there at one point? Probably true, right? Statistically true. Next up, though, we've got Liverpool/Birkenhead. Birkenhead's a small town near Liverpool, and they share a metropolitan area because I guess they cross the river. But yeah, there's this big area of Liverpool, Birkenhead. Liverpool is it's not the third biggest. I'm thinking of Manchester, but Liverpool's like a city that has this huge, like, it used to be one of the very biggest in the UK because it had shipping locked down. Like, if you think about the UK strategically speaking, it's one of the ports that's like, oh yeah, right here, this little River Mersey is perfect for when shipping was the big thing that the UK did before we moved past that. So it's got this, like, huge legacy as a shipping city. It's also got a huge culture component to it. The Beatles are from there, and everyone knows that as a little niche fun fact. But they've been, like, the capital city of culture. Look, the Beatles statue. See, I mentioned it, and then it came true. Let's look at the Beatles. Are these the Beatles? Yeah, they're the Beatles. It looks like they're like really historic. Like, if you didn't know the Beatles, you'd be like, wow, they must have founded Liverpool or something. Now they're just a very famous band that happened to be from here. But yeah, there's a lot of, like, cultural attachments to it. There's a lot of, like, tourism things they've diversified into, including, by the way, the Titanic. See, even when the Titanic was big, which I think it didn't set sail from here, but it must have been built here. Look, we found the Titanic. But no, basically, Liverpool is a very industrial heartland city. And these days, it's like, I think Bootle, and there's a few, like, parts of Liverpool which are the deepest red in terms of UK politics, like left-leaning voting as opposed to right-leaning voting. And part of that, and interesting enough, there's another, like, here's an asterisk. There's a newspaper, it's called The Sun. But, like, because Liverpool, most people worldwide would know Liverpool for the football club before the city. I would be willing to bet. Like, I've seen so many Liverpool FC cities in weird parts of the world. I find it funny you're doing this live, partly due to my Portuguese super chat yesterday, says Fola de Papo. You basically made this happen. Thank you, friendo. But, yeah, Liverpool is it's a very industrial city. It's a very football city. These days, I'd say it's its most famous thing. But it's also very, like, left-wing politically, to the level where the highest majorities are found in this area between Liverpool and Manchester. And I mentioned this as a fun fact about, like, even though the UK is, like, kind of small in some ways, Liverpool and Manchester are cities that hate each other despite being this far apart. 45 kilometers. There is less than, you know, that'd be like 30 miles. You can get between these cities in like half an hour, and they hate each other. And then there's like Wigan in between. Is that the same Wigan, actually? I don't think that is the same Wigan. Is it the same Wigan? But there's also like a Wigan rivalry with both of those as well. Like up here in the northwest, the cities have like huge rivalries with each other, and I don't entirely understand it, but I find it funny, and maybe you do too. Ringo. I agree. I don't like football. Who does, right? But yeah, one of the things that happened, one of the reasons, the football thing actually relates to the left-wing thing, because one of the UK papers, which is for some reason considered right-wing, I mean, like, I guess all tabloids have an aspect of that, reported that, like, oh yeah, the reason all those people died was because they were scummy people. It wasn't because of, like, other factors. And as a result, like, I think it's The Sun, just isn't sold anywhere in Liverpool, which is fascinating that, like, one newspaper is so boycotted by the population that anywhere that sells it gets boycotted, so that they anywhere going to Liverpool just cannot have that one newspaper. It's fascinating. So next up, going on to the next biggest city. Help me keep track, please, internet. Tell me what number we're on. We've got Lyon, or as I think it should be if we're going in English, Lyon. So as we look at Lyon, let's go to that one guy, super chat, who says, I'm confused. I'm confused. The four Toyka videos at the same time. I'm getting so confused on which one I'm watching live, says the one guy. You've got to stop watching so many YouTube videos, friend. You can watch one at a time. That's okay, you know. That works just fine. But Lyon is the second biggest city in France by metropolitan area. Apparently not by city limits. Apparently that's Marseille, a city I know so much about that I can tell you all of it. Lyon is I only know this because I play a lot of history games. Lyon is like the historic capital of France, like before Paris was a big thing. In the Roman times, when there was a Roman province here, it was the capital of that region. And in terms of like, again, if you look at like its area around here, you can see that, when a city is really big, it draws a lot of cities to like gravitate around it. You can see Lyon has a lot of development around it. If we go to Earth view, we can show that maybe better. And you can see how like, yeah, there's a lot of cities drawn in all directions off Lyon. Geneva, a huge city, capital of the world, you could say, is just over there. Funny enough, that exact event was on this day 31 years ago. Never forget the 96. See, right, that's a thing that people are very, very bitter about. And, maybe rightfully so. I don't live there. I can't comment on it too much. But this is Lyon. It's a very, again, like, the red roofs is like something to me that's like, yep, that's a Romany time thing, or like it looks like it is. And if we look at a Lyon, you can be like, oh yeah, this feels French, but it's not the same. Again, like most of the French cities are so far apart from each other, like the big ones, I should say, that like they feel, again, unlike most countries in Europe, which have like a pretty cohesive nature. France is very much French, and that's a thing. Like, they all have the same language. But beyond that, like the regions of France are pretty hugely different. Like if I was more in tune with my French friends and brothers, etc., then I would obviously be able to tell you a lot more about all of the differences. But what I do know is that the differences between them are huge, and that people from different cities are like, oh yes, the Parisians are the worst, but Lyonnais, they are the best. And they do it in that accent. 35 Lyon. Thank you, friends. So this is the 35th biggest city in Europe. What's number 34, I hear you asking? I mean, you can find out looking at this list. Shall I just hide this list so you're not looking at it? We've got Valencia next, the first city with over 2 million people. So Valencia is a city I know well, not just because of Valencian oranges. I mean, that's like most of it. Don't get me wrong. But I also know Valencia because in Spain, the diversion of cities, again, every country is slightly different in Europe. Spain is like one big city in the middle, Madrid, the biggest city in fact, and then around it, everything is somewhat close to the coast. Between Madrid and those cities, there is very little. Like, if I show you, halfway between Madrid and Valencia, two huge cities, again, two of the biggest 30 cities in Europe. If we go to Cuenca, it's just a tiny little town. It's not particularly huge. This might be a bad example, actually, but like, if we look around here, it's like, that's a thing. But to actually stay on Valencia, because otherwise someone's going to be mad that I don't go over their city enough. Valencia is... Ooh, look at this, actually. Let's look around Valencia ourselves. Valencia is where the oranges come from, and it's big for tourism. Something famous happens here. It might be the bull running. Ooh, darn. There's a famous thing that comes from Valencia, I'm pretty sure. But that is my knowledge of Valencia, actually. See, the second-tier cities in most countries aren't as famous as the rest of them. Like, there's Belarus. Huh. Does that mean I know more American cities than I know European cities? Because I think this is now, like, 3 or 4 passes we've gone through where it's like, huh, they recycle here. Valencia, big on recycling. That's fun. What else do they do good here? They've got a turn sign saying you can't turn left, and that's unique. That's fun. There's an Instagram filter called Valencia. Oh, I use that filter sometimes. And yeah, the bull running's in Pamplona. Oh, you're right, actually, Pamplona. See, as soon as you say it, it makes sense. And then you're like, oh yeah, never mind, that's a thing. So, isn't Valencia Tomatina? It was the center for Reconquista. Exactly, friend. So Valencia is also pretty close to the islands. In a, like, Spanish, when it comes to Northern European people, so I'm talking UK, Scandinavia, Germans, go to Spain. They usually don't go to the major cities. They go to the islands. So there's Ibiza over here. There's Palma. There's the ones over here, Fuerteventura, whatever they're called, Tenerife, etc. There's a lot of... So I guess this would be Tenerife. And then Gran Canaria. And then one of these... There we go, Fuerteventura. So that... I don't think it's pronounced that way. I think it's like Fuerteventura. So yeah, with that said, we're going to move on from the 34th biggest city to the 33rd, Minsk, Russia. So Minsk, Minsk, Belarus. The joke was that it's Minsk, Russia. I know Belarus is a different country. So Belarus is actually called Belarusia in most languages, or like White Russia in many. Belarus is the English name. You don't know my city, you thought it was the capital. Okay, you got me good there. So Minsk in Russia is a really famous city for science reasons. When Minsk was a part of the USSR, I'm gonna stop calling it that. There's a thing in Friends where Friends calls it Minsk, Russia, because it was part of Russia during the USSR times, and it's a big mistake. But there is a huge site, like it's one of the big cities of science from the former USSR. It's one of the big cities that did break, one of the biggest cities that wasn't in Russia as part of the USSR. And they're also huge when it comes to sports. Like, I think it's ice hockey that Minsk like demolishes in. So yeah, Minsk is a like huge cultural center, scientific center. And honestly, if it weren't for the fact that Belarusia was so connected for so long with its history to Russia, I think that this would be like one of the famous cities of Europe. Like these days, everyone might have heard of Minsk vaguely. Oh, let's go to the Minsk McDonald's. By the way, it's one of the very few countries and cities without Street View. So instead, we look at McDonald's from across the... Okay, wait, is this McDonald's behind this? Where are you, McDonald's? There's LG, though. So yeah, it's one of those, like... it has a huge proportion of the country's population living in and around it. And it is it's one of those cities that I've really, really, really wanted to visit for as long as I can remember. Like, to get into it, it's the only city in Belarus you can visit without a visa, as long as it's for less than 72 hours. Don't ask how there's like a visa for one city, but Minsk is so important that it gets that to happen. That's where Phoebe's boyfriend goes to study something science. Yeah, exactly, right? I forgot about Phoebe's boy. Like, I've rewatched Friends like 2 or 3 times, and every time it's like, oh yeah, he goes to Minsk, and he calls it part of Russia. And at one point, it was part of the Soviet Union, which was kind of Russia. But you know what isn't kind of Russia? The next city after Minsk, West Yorkshire, Leeds Bradford. So this is somewhere I've been. Do you want to know my story about why I went here? Because it wasn't a happy one. I think I went to Leeds because I was in Leeds because I think like I was gonna go with my girlfriend at the time, and then she was like, oh, I feel too sick to get on this bus, but you should go anyway. That was the last time I saw her. She like ghosted me after that. So like I like sad memories because like we were leading towards the ghosting at the time, I imagine. But anyway, so like Leeds and Bradford, which make up the same overall area, it's something like my personal like memory is clouded on, so I'll try not to line it up too much. And instead I'll say, hey, did you know they've got a royal armories that is really beautiful? It's one of the most interesting like armory museums I've ever been to. Like, I'm not that I go to many armory museums, but like it got me interested in weapons over time, so that's kind of cool. Nice little thing they've got going on there. Leeds also has a lot of F's in chat. Seems like she was leading you on. Good job. So I can tell you that somewhere to the west of this, there's a Holiday Inn Express, and I had a long conversation with an Uber driver about why is it called Holiday Inn Express, and it's like, why are hotel chains express? You know, It's not like you need a fast hotel, although apparently it's meant to be checking in and out, but whatever. Whole side note. I went to the... I think I went to the No, wait, not the Weatherspoons. The casino that's around here once. I was like, well, I'm kind of bored. I'm here for a weekend by myself. Better gamble some money. Oh man, the Weatherspoons is closed. I wish I'd gone to the Weatherspoons before it closed. My life could have been so much better. But yeah, so as far as like what else I can say is like, if you look at the city centre... Wait, I've got a video on my channel recorded in front of the Leeds Town Hall. If you look right here. It is very fast. Like, this building is very, very nice. And it's also one of the few places in the UK you can find an English flag, like, waving on one of the poles. Apparently not right here. Like, it's got, like, an English flag, an EU flag, a Leeds flag, and, like, a Union Jack. It was something I found interesting. Because we're in the north of the UK, there's a bunch of Gregs, too. This Greg's looks so old. Oh, this is 2012. Let's go to 2018. It's a Bellissimo sandwich bar and deli now. Well, you know what? I was correct that it was an old Greg's. Look at me. I know how time works. And now the flags are still horrifically out of date. My life is a tragedy. My life is a tragedy. So I didn't know you did live streams to this channel. I don't. You know, we're all just inside anyway. Might as well do some stuff. Thank you, JV. So next up, after Leeds Bradford, we got me down now. Let's not finish this list. I'm too sad. Let's go to Bucharest. So Bucharest is super, super fascinating, in my opinion, because it's like when you think of big cities in Europe, everyone knows the London, the Paris, the Berlins. You might then guess Madrid and Rome, and then after that, it's kind of lost. Most people wouldn't guess that Bucharest is the 6th biggest city in the EU. It must be 5th now that the UK has left, actually. But it's a huge city because Romania is a very big country by population, and that population is centered around Bucharest. So I know a fun fact about a big building. I don't know which one it is, though, but it's very big, so I should be able to guess. There's this huge building in Bucharest that they spent all the money to make as big as they humanly could. It's got to be... Okay, wait, let's find it. But there's this huge, huge, huge building. Let's see what the Romanian High Court looks like first. I know that there's this wacky fact that they built this huge building that they... it's got to be this one, right? That they then couldn't fill entirely or something like that. Like, it was built for the... Look at the size of this thing. Look at this building. And bear in mind, this wasn't built like a long time ago. They built it recently. This is their parliament building. In Romania, people don't trust their politicians. And one of the biggest reasons is, like, stuff like this. This is bigger than the White House. How many room? Also, wow, look at the size of this area. Is this like a parking lot? Like across from it? Is this a parking lot just on the side of a main road? What is going on here? Palace of the People. But yeah, so in Romania, people don't like their politicians very much. I mean, no one likes their politicians anywhere, but they really don't like them over there. And that is something I know. And you can see there's this nice Boulevard Henri going up to the... I can't read that out. But there's a nice fountain, supposedly, too. That's real nice. But yeah, so Bucharest is a super, super interesting city because it's so big and it's grown so much since the fall of, communism. Because they weren't part of the USSR, but they're part of the Soviet bloc. And these days, they've really, really developed the city into, like, a modern... Again, it's so sad that it doesn't make it onto most, like, big tourist lists. But it's wildly cheap to visit. Like, a nice hotel will set you back, like, a third the price of a major Western European city. And also, here's a pretty fountain again. Isn't this fountain... Oh, it's dark now. Also, look, Coca-Cola. And 004. I guess it was just past midnight, maybe? I'm not too sure. But you know what I am sure of? That Google Maps is broken again. Let's get out of here. Let's get out. Okay, it's entirely broken. Well, you know what? We're just going to look at Coca-Cola 004. And we're going to do that until we're happy, okay? They were fascist allies to Italy in World War II. I mean, no one's perfect. No one's perfect. How do we keep ending up back on the London to London City Airport walking directions? I really want to go to the airport, okay? I'm sad I can't. It makes me sad. And someone needs to fix that. My Romanian neighbor is always talking to me about the big community of Tile that live in the sewers of Bucharest and have a leader on drugs and it's all legit. That is very wacky. Good morning, IBX2Cat. Totally not IBX Toy Cat. You get me, Mr. Mech Assassin. You get me. Countdown till the end of the world, says Hexatron. So next up on our list of big cities, we've got metropolitan Stockholm. So Stockholm is a city that I love a lot. Like, I think I'll just throw my biases out there right now. The further north in Europe you go, the more I like it. The further south in Europe you go, the more I'm confused by it. And the further east in Europe you go, the more it makes me sad. That sounds like generally offensive, but it's like a good broad trend. I feel like Stockholm is a great example of a city that is really, really, really well put together. And I mean that for a few different ways. Like, okay, let's go to a random little neighborhood around here, right? Let's go to IKEA Stockholm City Cock, which is what they called it, not me. So this is the IKEA. There's no IKEA here. There's a van that says stop, though. But yeah, so Stockholm is a really well put together city. They've got a really, really nice metro. Again, I want to bring this up because it's just one of those things that blew my mind. When I stayed in Stockholm, I remember it was near this Prime Burger because I met a British guy there. I was like, whoa, this is weird to me. He moved there to be with his girlfriend, and I was like, hey, nice. But so yeah, I remember was it Prime Burger? I feel like it was somewhere near that. But anyway, I was like, so it's one of the things on this street. I stayed like near one of these streets, and I remember on my street I had this like metro station, and the metro station was called it was this one right here, right? No, it's not that one right there. Damn it, you know what? This story's going nowhere. I swear, it's worth telling. But it was okay. Wait, we'll find it. We'll find it. There we go. So the station was. Nope, it's gone. You know what? But my point is like they've got these super beautiful public transport stops. So we go inside of this little station right here. Let's find it. Can we find it? I don't think we can find it. We're in a random shop again, I think. Okay, we're in Dina Friozra. It's a hair salon. How many hair salons do you have in your city? Find it, says Chunky9. You know what? Let's do it. You know what? Let's, rather than giving up and assuming we're never going to find it, let me find for you this metro station. Because on this street, I don't know why it's not showing up, actually. Because I'm 99% sure it was this street. Yeah, there we go. It's not on Google Maps, but I know it. See, this is proof I've been here. So there's this station right here, and you can go down here, and the other entrance, bear in mind they're just like two sides of the same platform, was like 3 or 4 blocks away. Okay, still going. Still going. Past the 7-Eleven, by the way. Been there more times than you would guess. There's another 7-Eleven like another block over, by the way, which I find wacky. Like, I think just over here, there's another 7-Eleven because Swedish people are lazy. Yep. See, look at that. I know my Stockholm. But anyway, so like so many blocks away is the exact same station, but that's just how long the platforms are. Like, you have to walk several blocks underground, and I think that's cool. In fact, are we ever going to find this? You know, we're never going to find it. We're just the second entrance has gone missing, but there was a second entrance, and it's like several blocks away. So the other entrance, which is the main, is the other way. Oh, so that is one entrance to a station that has another entrance elsewhere. Is it this one, maybe? I guess that's the closest one that it could be. So that could be the same one as this station. Let's find out. Wait. So, but yeah, it was a very long station is my point. I'm trying to prove it's several blocks long. I love Sweden. I went there once. Hey, thank you, Cat Girl. Hey, £15. I hope you're having a wonderful day. See, if it was less than £15, I'd be like, hope it's a good day. Hope it's a great day. The quality of day I wish for you, directly proportional to your price, because capitalism or something. But no, I really enjoyed Stockholm. It's got this like outer city vibe that's like super nice out there. But like when you go into the center, there's this like, because Stockholm, unlike most capital cities, is spread across so many islands. Like there's the main like kind of landmass, then there's another landmass. The old town is its own little island. Like if I show you this island right here, it's a whole own separate thing. It's weird. It's fascinating. It's, ooh, see, this is not the streets I was trying to show you. What even is this? Stockholm's quirky, okay? Sweden is very quirky as a country. They are more developed than most other countries, and it's a reminder that like they do a lot of things that people like. They do a lot of things people dislike, but it's a reminder. I feel like to both people on the, no matter what your political opinions are, there are things you want to do that Sweden doesn't do, and are more successful than you for doing. There are lots of things you don't want to do that Sweden does, and they're more successful than you for doing them. And it's a reminder that, like, by the way, there's another island specifically just for the castle, I want to say. Like this one right here. And then there's another island. Okay, Castle Hummen. There's another island which has a nice little theme park on again. You know, I like my theme parks. Groten Lund. I got really sad because when Mojang invited loads of YouTubers out there, by the way, didn't invite me. Very sad. You say one thing about Minecoins, and you say that maybe they shouldn't be, you know, like scamming children by making false currency like they do in literal casinos. Apparently, that's too far to get a free invite to a theme park in Sweden. But anyway, so it looks really abandoned. Like, I know, like, it's because it was just empty, but like, ooh, feels weird. They got a theme park, like they got like an old style thing within the city, just like Copenhagen. It's nice. I like Swedish. So I actually happen to know, like, of all the languages in the world, I know like the tiniest bit of Swedish, which is dumb because everyone in Sweden, if you try to speak Swedish to them, they're just like, let's not. Also, I found this in real life. I think I took a picture and tweeted it. If you want to find an old tweet, this place right here is next to a 7-Eleven, by the way. It's called Rolf's Cock. Why is that common? I don't know. I find it funny. Maybe you don't. But is this a British pub? The Queen's Head. Should we go inside? We can't go inside. Let's just look outside longingly. That's got to be a British pub, right? Oh wait. I guess they didn't clarify which queen, because is that the Texas flag or is that Chile? Huh. I asked you in Swedish if you knew Swedish and you didn't know, lol. It's cock, not cock. Is that the Texas flag or am I crazy, Internet? What? Chile. It's Chile. So it's Chile's flag above a British pub? I can only assume it's British. I mean, there's no way that's anything else, right? Like, a range of... What am I looking at? What is anything about Stockholm? Why Chilean and Portuguese? And then a British pub? Whatever, you know, I don't know what I'm looking at. What I do know what I'm looking at is if that was 35, then this would be like 29 maybe. Vienna, as you might know from the fact that Viennese rolls, or is it just called a Viennese? I don't know, it's not actually from Vienna. It's from here. So Vienna is the capital of Austria, and it's got that thing where like there's a disproportionate amount of Austrians living in Vienna. So of 8 million Austrians, 1.8 actually of 8 million Austrians, 2.25 live in the Vienna area. Arguably 2.8, depending on which numbers you use. So it's a huge city, proportionally speaking. And there's a lot of like super old, like again, it's got that like old charm to it because when Austria-Hungary was a thing, it wasn't a tiny country of 8 million. It was one of the largest empires in Europe. Austria-Hungary were one country alongside a lot of other countries around them. And they had a multilingual empire, which is why the other countries aren't part of them anymore. Because we decided that's not how countries work. But so they've got this super old thing for being that capital. They were a big city in prior to that times. And nowadays, Vienna is like a neutral, because Austria is a neutral country. It seems like a neutral place. Thank you, Timotej. Vienna is very close to Sukivo, you know? Wink, wink. You know what? Sulikovo. If I can find it on a map within 5 seconds, for you, friend, I'll do it. Sulikovo. 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 I couldn't find it in 5 seconds. I tried, friend. You know, that's more than I give most people. That's more than I give most people. So, did Joseph Fritzl live there? You know what? That's a fun... what I don't know about Joseph Fritzl, but I do know about the fact that so many of history's most famous people were in Vienna at the same time. Karl Marx, Freud, Sigmund Freud, the father of modern psychology, Adolf Hitler, and another huge one whose name I'm mistaken of, all used to go to the same cafe in Vienna. Is it the Café Central? It might be the Café Central. You know, it's not the Café Central, but let's pretend it is. But no, so like, there's the wacky fact that like Vienna was such a huge city even though that sounds like a wacky fact, it's just that they were all from the same part of history, and Vienna was a huge thing within it. Also, in England, does the meaning of the term metro always refer to a train? I'm asking because in the US, it can refer to a bus system too. Basically, any form of metropolitan mass transport. Yeah, metro in most European languages means underground train only. Regular train, not a metro. Underground train, metro. If you called a train system a metro if it wasn't underground, that would be weird. When people call buses metros, it's like, you're trying too hard. You're trying a bit too hard there, friend. So, yeah, Vienna is a very fascinating city. Viennese sausages from Vienna. Viennese coffee, they're like really big on that. I remember from Vienna. I've flown through Vienna like 3 times, and I can tell you that their market, even though there's so many things you can love about it. By the way, their rat house. Actually, wait, German speakers of the chat, what is a rat house? Can someone explain this to me? I still don't know. Like, it's like a place where citizens have to go for reasons, and I can't actually find the rat house. Is it this one? Like, I know it doesn't mean rat house, it's like citizen place that you go. But it's like, so this is the Vienna rat house. It's nice, don't get me wrong. A city hall. But it's not quite a city hall, is it? Right? I had a German girlfriend a couple years ago, and she tried to explain it to me and just couldn't. And I was like, it's not a city hall. And I was like, is it a city hall? It's like, oh no, it's kind of like when you go somewhere, you have to go there first, you know? And I was like, there's no English equivalent of that. So anyway, let me like show off Heldenplatz. So this is a public. This is nice. So this is again, you can kind of see like Vienna is a very historically important city, but also it's got like the modern day connection of being like, oh yeah, you want to find a big city that's neutral. Vienna is a very good place because it's surrounded by most of the powers. It's also central in terms of Europe, and Austrian Airlines is the big airline of the place. Also, Vienna, just to mention it, because always I love airports and airport fun facts. Vienna is so close to Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia. The cheap, like lots of countries have cheap airports that you can fly into that are further away from the city. The cheap airport for Vienna is Bratislava, because you can just catch the train from Bratislava to Vienna or get a taxi for an hour. And I had an Uber driver in Vienna. No, it was in Bratislava. Who was like, I usually do taxi transfers from Bratislava airport to Vienna. I'm just doing this for fun. We can't talk about Bratislava today. I feel like I had more to say about it than Vienna, because Vienna's a very cool city, but I haven't really felt it all. Like it's there's more to it than I need to see someday. In fact, even though I've been through Vienna so many times, I've never spent a night there. I've always just like spent half a day looking at it, being like, huh, sure is wacky. And you know what else is wacky? The 33rd. We've lost count. Let's admit, 28th biggest city in Europe, Munich. So Munich, you know, we'll make the Nazi man reference to everything, is where the Munich Agreement was signed, and that is a thing that's kind of important. But no, Munich is much more famous for being the cultural heart of Germany. Thank you, Anne Martin.
München. Dankas Vicat.
Oh, now I feel bad that I went straight into making a reference to the evil man. But also, it's Tina from Geelong, Australia. Munich is definitely... It's spelt like the way he spelt it, by the way, in German. In English, it said Munich. It's one of those funny, like, how does that happen? München becomes Munich. But Munich is the second biggest city in Germany by population. And it is this huge cultural hub. And it honestly, like, before Germany united into... because it's the heart of Bavaria too. Before Germany united into one kind of like cohesive German-speaking blob, Munich was kind of seen as like its own thing. Like there was a North Germany, there was an Austria, and in the middle was Bavaria, with Munich being the big hub, which was like the scientific place of Europe. It was the arts place of Europe. It was the city for a lot of different things. And yeah, so Munich is it's still got a lot of those things today. All of the things that you associate as being culturally German, even though they're not culturally German, they're culturally Bavarian, they come from right here. I have to mention this every time. White sausage is the worst, and it's like their famous thing. Oh look, a McDonald's in central Munich. We're gonna make that our thing. Like you can Lederhosen, anything you know that is German, probably comes from here somewhere. Like the old German style of housing. Because I can show you a billion examples of that just by looking around. A Reveille to go. Actually, I've been through the city. It's very pedestrianized, which I love for going there, but it's a pain for going around on Street View. So here is a Christmas market. That's cute. Big thing in the south of Germany. Although in reality, they've spread past the south of Germany to the rest of Germany, and they spread past the rest of Germany to the rest of Europe. But like, they're a big thing here. And also, look, you can see right here how there is this square right here. If you ever visit Munich, the one thing I recommend beyond anything else, it's dumb, it's stupid. You can see people taking pictures, but like every hour on the hour, there's like a clock that comes out, like and like there's a little play that comes up. It's like all mechanized and stuff. It's super dumb, but I love it because of how old it all is. And yeah, this is a very olden German city that is very different to the rest of Germany, I would say. Also, that's the worst pun I've ever heard, says Akira. Hey. Also, YouTube's German sidewalks are big. I'd say most European countries have, like, big sidewalk. If we go to, like, let's go to a random part of the city. Like, let's go to... I remember going to this park. I don't know why I was there. but I was in this park at one point in my life. And yeah, look at this. Look at these pavements, as we call them in the UK. Also, look, it's a roundabout. Wow. All you Americans must be so confused. What's this all about? But yeah, it's a very pedestrian-friendly city. Most European cities are, like the next one here. So after Munich, we've got Katowice. So Katowice, I honestly, pronunciation, a little lost on. Katowice is a city that is... So the reason you know it tourism-wise is I believe it's the one that's closest to Auschwitz-Birkenau, I believe. Again, I know Krakow has its salt mine, and Katowice has one of the deadliest sites in Europe, because at the time, Katowice is a fairly recent Polish city, like it was at one point. It's gone for a lot, it's changed hands a lot of times over the time. But Katowice is a city, I can tell you, oh yeah, it's got a restaurant, McDonald's. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Polish McDonald's. This is where we're at. Thank you so much, Cat Gale. Thank you for being so generous there. I love that it's just a no strings attached message, but I want to know what the string is. I want a string now. I hope you are doing well. See, it's gone from really good to well. You stingy. Thank you so much. I want to like jokingly insult people, but then there's always gonna be someone who's like, I don't get your sarcasm, and I think you're mean. I just want to see the McDonald's, Google. Is that so much to ask? So yeah, this is our first Polish city we've gone through, actually, I think, right? Which is interesting that, like, so high on the list we have a Polish city that most people have never heard of. I've been to a Polish Starbucks once. Katowice with the E spelt like, you know what I mean, says Kimotodziec. So yeah, Katowice is a pretty major Polish city. The connections between Katowice and the rest of Europe, because again, it's Western Poland, which should be Central Europe and connected quite well, but it's pretty poorly connected to the rest of the European cities by rail and land, etc. So it is mostly like air and driving to get out of there, which I find sad. Maybe you do too. I've considered going quite a few times, and I'd love to talk more. The string is that you keep being entertaining, no pressure. Oh no, they're slowly shrinking in value. The next one's going to be logarithmically £0, I guess. Oh, not logarithmically, following the pattern. See, I can do IQ tests, but you know what else I can do? I can talk about the 20... Wow, Poland has 2 in a row. So Warsaw is a... Someone said this to me once, and it stuck me ever since. Warsaw is the most accurate name for a city that can exist. Not because, like, they mean it that way, but, like, Warsaw is a city that has been demolished time after time after again, not because of the faults of the Warsawan people. The Warsawites? The Warsawis? 26th city. Not because of the fault of the people who live in Warsaw, not because of the Polish people's mistakes, but instead Warsaw is a city which has been demolished because the powers around it just decided it was convenient if Poland didn't exist anymore, and Warsaw was always the last battleground. The museum, I went there once and I like learned about the Polish resistance. It's like, man, imagine just being told your country doesn't get to exist anymore. It's happened not once, happened not twice. It's happened thrice to Germany throughout history, with the most recent example being World War II, of course, the kind of big starting to it all. Yeah, so the city is very much it's very new. Everything had to be rebuilt as recently as then because it didn't go down peacefully. It was, yeah, again, they stood up, but as a result, they were utterly bombed over the vast majority of the city. Thank you very much, by the way. I didn't see what it came with, but it had the cat noise, and I like that. So let's go instead and let's show you a kebab king place. I have a fact about Warsaw that I can say that I feel like I can't ever take back once I say it. And maybe it's not appropriate for the second channel. But I stayed in like a high-rise like apartment at one point. And I remember being sad when I went to Warsaw. Not because of Warsaw, it was something else. And I won't tell you the fun fact, actually. But maybe it relates to those two things. Maybe you can work it out. But what you can't work out is the fact that Warsaw is a very modern city. Like it's they've got a lot of tech, a lot of modern industrial, but as well as that, like it's a big tourist hub, and they've got like this old city, which I think was mostly, you know, like it's mostly rebuilds and stuff. But you can see what the old city would have looked like from looking through here. Like this is what Poland, you know, Warsaw was a city which had just as much significance in culture, but all of this culture has to be like rebuilt because it was all destroyed as a result. It's very sad. Hipty hopty, Poland is property, says Silent Jarl. Exactly. That is what three times in the last 200 years has happened to Poland, and it's very sad. Won't be when the next power burns it to the ground. Exactly. That is a tragic look at the world. Next up, we've got the Stuttgart metropolitan region. So Stuttgart is like not even one of the biggest 5 cities in Germany, but I guess the area around it makes it the biggest. Stuttgart's a fascinating city to me. We'll just kind of mention the fact that like, oh yeah, they've got a lot of like trade shows and stuff that go there. But what's more fascinating than that is that it's a city that like has a lot of motor industry like going in and out of it. But despite the fact that it's very like Mercedes-Benz apparently, despite the fact that it's got so much history of cars, etc., it's got one of the very few green governments in Germany. So car region, green government, pick one, you know. Or maybe you shouldn't pick one. Maybe that's why they have a green government. Maybe you could tell me that's different. I don't know. Let's show you Stuttgart on a map so we can say we looked at it. Let's go to the Rat House, which again means town hall according to chat. See, they like their roads here. Look at this road right here. It's one of these like roads with a separation, then another road, then another separation, then another road. Look, crossing this street right here just seems like too much work for me. I'd rather just get hit by a car, which is a perfect thing to do in the car city. That train station though. Should we go to the train station? I've never seen the train station of Stuttgart. Is it nice? You know what, for you... Wait, who said that? For you... It's gone. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe you came out of my imagination. Also, we're halfway through. Whoa, we're halfway there now. Whoa, we're living on a bread now. Also, this is not a pretty railway station. Huh. Anyway, so let's move on to the next biggest city in Europe. What's it gonna be? Lisbon. So this city, I look at Kiev so I highlighted. I had to search up like, is Lisbon not bigger than Porto? Because I didn't find it. But Lisbon is the biggest city in Portugal. When I picture Lisbon, like, there are very few cities that, like, my first thing I picture is, like, a super old, winding town. Like, you know, you're going to find if you look literally anywhere, I'm sure. Yep, winding streets going up a hill. The second thing I picture, perfectly enough, is actually trams. Like, even though this is, like, a one-way street, it somehow has trams going through it. And, yeah, the trams in Lisbon are super, super iconic. Don't ask me why. Maybe this is a me thing. But they've got these super old-style trams going on them. I like that. I find that interesting. As you can see, it's a very old style city. It's cobbly pathways. Man, I like this a lot. I like this a lot. I don't remember I don't know what city it's gonna be vibes off. Like last time I went to Barcelona, it was kind of like this. But I wanted to go to Portugal forever. I wanted to go to Lisbon forever. I'm sad I haven't been able to. The only reason has just been like I refuse. In Europe, like air travel's so cheap, and when it's not cheap, you're like no. And that's what's happened with Lisbon. But yeah, look how beautiful Lisbon is. Look at all these tourists too. It's also, in terms of density of capital, it's one of those great examples of lots of people in a country packed in one place. Because Portugal looks kind of big on a map, but in reality, again, they live in very few specific areas, and Lisbon is the largest one of them. Also, I happen to know there's like a huge Airbnb, like, people of Lisbon really hate Airbnb, so there's huge restrictions on using it right there. So yeah, now you know. Now that no one's using Airbnb, I want to know, like, because I feel like Airbnb is the easiest scapegoat. Like, you can be like, oh, the reason my rent's going up is because of this thing. Like, it's easy to just point at tourists and be like, the outsiders, they're the problem. Like, it's funny, like, there's so many, like, left-wing solutions to problems that can blame foreigners, but in, like, a polite way. Like, oh, yeah, rent all on the foreigners. But not the good foreigners, the bad foreigners, the ones with the money. They're the ones causing our problems, I reckon. So it's a fascinating thing to, like, a look into the... Like, a lot of cities have this issue, but Portugal, Lisbon had, like, a huge... maybe they banned it even, something like that. But yeah, look at this. Look at this cute little yellow tram going through the streets. It's going to hit a car soon, but that's okay. Trams are allowed to hit cars in Lisbon. That's a fact that I didn't just make up. But you know what else I didn't just make up? Amsterdam being the 23rd biggest city. So Amsterdam... Do I need to explain Amsterdam to you? I feel like it's the city that is just so widely known about, like, hey... Did you know Amsterdam exists? So the 22nd biggest city is definitely... No, we'll do it. We'll do it. We'll do it. Amsterdam is it's considered the capital of the Netherlands, but the government isn't there. So by any definition that isn't the Dutch government definition, it's not the capital. And the interesting thing about Amsterdam is that it's very canal heavy. Everyone knows that. But if you look at it on a map, you can really see those canals. Like when you're on the street in Amsterdam, you might spot you're like walking along, you're like, oh, this is another European European city with a lot of rivers or whatever. Like, you see these a lot as you go around Amsterdam. But when you look at it on a map, you realize, like, oh yes, a lot of canals. Amsterdam was built at a time where water travel was the most efficient way. And just because I love little trivia right here, if you look at random houses along the canal, the tax in the Netherlands at one point was based on the width of the house. So if you look around, you can see how look at this house right here. Look at the width of this thing. This is an apartment building, I think. But if you look around, you find some ridiculously skinny houses. So if we go over to here, let's say, okay, we'll go to the Homo Monument first. Actually, you know, the memorial to. Oh, actually, it is a Homo Monument. It's not just bad translation. So first of all, good job, persecuted gays and lesbians. Second of all, Amsterdam has very thin houses, still because of that same little thing. It has good public transport, has good. It's a very interesting city, and also this like freaks me out. But there are so many places where like your brakes are the only thing stopping your car going in the river, and like a few cars a year do end up in the canals, alongside like hundreds of bikes and stuff like that. It's fascinating. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know. All I know is that we should go to the Pancake Bakery. Man, I love Amsterdam. I've been there a few times, and oh, here's my unique tourist insight. I've been to Amsterdam, and there are more British people there than Dutch people by like a huge margin. I want to live in a skinny Amsterdam house. I wish I could find you like wait, let's find like skinny house. If we search skinny house, it won't find it. We find the thin house. Oh, this is in South Kensington, London. You know what? We're gonna end up in London eventually. When we do, let's go see the thin house. Is this the one right here? Oh my god. So look at the thinness of this house. This is I want to live in this house. This is the opposite of skinny house, but you know, I'm happy with it regardless. So yeah, that's basically Amsterdam. Beautiful place, lots of things to say, but I don't have lots of things to say about Budapest in Hungary. I forgot where we are here. Here we go, Budapest in Hungary. So Budapest would be 22nd, I think. And yeah, Budapest is another city. Recommend for lots of reasons. Like after the fall off the Iron Curtain, Budapest has done very well for itself. But my unique little fact is that did you know the left side is actually a city called Buda, the right side is a city called Pest. They merged together and made Buda Pest. But addresses are still Buda on the left and Pest on the right. I hope it's not the other way around. But yeah, there's a lot of the Budapest Eye is a cute. There's so many cute little things that I've seen around in Budapest. I went here for a weekend once. I did not regret it in the slightest. I love Budapest a lot. It's a super, super unique city that I just recommend. There's not much else to say. They make chimney cakes. Chimney cakes are cute. They've got a fun flag that's like the Italian flag but sideways. And also, there's a big hill up here. And I want to say this big hill. Wait, this thing right here. It was like one of my like first ambitions in Europe. Like, I gotta go on this hill. And I did it like a year ago or so. And I was like, yeah, that's nice. This is a nice city. So isn't there a 400-year-old tea shop in London? It's older than my entire country. That sounds correct to me. There's probably a lot of tea shops that are older than your entire country in the UK. I bet it's not even just the one. Next up, Brussels Capital Region. Why is it called the Brussels Capital Region? Because Belgium is a country that doesn't deserve to exist. There you go. You know what? Brussels is such a bad city. You know, this is the first city I just want to rail on. Brussels does have some things going for it. I mean, Belgian chocolate exists, and Belgium invented fries. Don't get me wrong. Belgium's done a good job in two places, but as a capital city for Europe, Brussels is just one of the worst cities that I don't recommend visiting. There are some really cool old sites and features, but as a city, I hate Brussels beyond belief. You know, you might have Fryland, that's nice. But yeah, it's the European capital, the European Parliament's here. I spotted when I was near the European Parliament, a hotel that I paid £60 for had like a on-the-day rate of like €1,000 or something like that, or like €600. It was one of those two numbers. And I saw a lot of like people in suits paying it, and I was like, politicians, easy money. And so yeah, I hate Brussels as a city, not just because of that. I mean, like, who doesn't hate politicians in a big city? But also the other thing about Brussels is like, it's not a fun city to visit as a tourist. It's so widely visited by like huge groups. If I go to this random palace right here, which I remember visiting on my first time I went here, and I was like, this is nice. It's an ugly screenshot, but like, oh, it's pretty, right? It's very gold. They're very, very rich, theoretical region. But you know what? Don't like Brussels. Let's get out of there. Let's move on to the next city. Don't like you so much, Brussels. But I do like the Hamburg metropolitan region. So interestingly enough, Hamburg is a city-state within Germany. So the Hamburg city-state region actually goes outside of it, which is kind of wacky. Like there are some towns and cities outside of Hamburg, the state, that are connected to Hamburg, the city. And yeah, Hamburg is where hamburgers were invented. That sounds like a fake fact, but it actually is true. So fun fact. They have a miniature wonderland where it's like a tiny like if you just look inside, it will explain it better than I can. Apparently it won't. What is this? Oh, it's someone took a screenshot on the train. But yeah, it's like it looks like a giant city, but it's all miniaturized. It's super cute in my opinion. But oh, look at that. Is the door giant or is the train just tiny? Oh look, it's an American ship. That's cute. So yeah, this is Hamburg. Hamburger. Hamburgers were in fact invented here. I believe. I've heard that one at least. Because this is the Hamburger Castle. The Hamburger Castle. As well as the European Institute for Sexual Health. So, reasons to go to Hamburg, miniature museum, hamburgers, and the European Institute for Sexual. This woman looks like she's going to judge me if I try to, you know, give her... If I go there with a sexual health problem, she's going to give me that look, and I just don't need that in my life, you know? But what I do need in my life is the 18th largest city, Birmingham in the west. But actually, I take that one back. Do we need Birmingham? So, as we just... do we need Birmingham? 17-figure city. So no, Birmingham is the second biggest city in the UK. You could argue Manchester is. It really depends on how you measure it. But Birmingham's the second biggest city, and it's like kind of this whole block of the UK that isn't really north and isn't really south. I will say, people from Birmingham are like, to me, they're like just about relatable, but also they're like halfway between the southerners and the northerners. I live in London, or I live near London, the north of London, like outside of London. But a lot of people, you know, like, so there's this kind of like divide between people from the south, especially further south than London than that. But Birmingham people have this like weird, everything about it's like a little bit different. Also, Cadbury used to have their factory here before Americans bought it. Fun fact too. But I think it might still be there, but it's like reduced. It's not where it's really made anymore. Also, Birmingham is a city that is like very, to me at least, my personal, like, because most big cities are worth visiting. You can have a great time. You don't like Brussels because of Brexit, Lamau. You got me. That's the reason I don't like Brussels. Also, we be the father of my children, says the Soviet Nazi. No. You know, I might like the EU. You don't know me. I might be a big fan of it. You don't know my opinions on federalism within the United States of Europe. But what you do know my opinion is that Birmingham, it's not that very big of a city in terms of the urban core. Like, I felt like when I was walking around Birmingham, I was walking around the Boston Tea Party. I felt like I was walking around a small enough town. Like, if we go here, we're pretty close to the center. But, like, it doesn't feel like it to me. Maybe this actually does kind of seem like a city. But most of Birmingham, like, there's a very, very small center. And then it, like, expands to, like, suburb feeling very quickly. The Chinese Quarter. Let's see what's in the Chinese Quarter. A casino. I find that offensive. As well as the Bangladesh High Commission. Oh, yeah, Birmingham is a very... So London is a city which is filled with a lot of black and EU. There's a lot of migrants from those two places. Whereas Birmingham is very much a Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Indian. Like, the migration patterns between cities is different. And also Birmingham is the youngest city in the UK and one of the youngest in the EU. Fun fact. But you know what else is a fun fact? Rotterdam, which apparently has a bigger metropolitan population than Amsterdam. Wouldn't have guessed that one. So yeah, Rotterdam is a big port city in the Netherlands. I had a friend once that, like, his big brag was like, my great-grandfather built that place, you know? And I was like, that's not a brag. No one's impressed by that one. Like, not that even if that was true, which when someone brags about their heritage, it's always exaggerated, because Did you know like there's no point in telling the truth about people who are dead. You can lie about them all you like, which is why Stalin was a great guy. I love him a lot. So anyway, Rotterdam is a big city. It's a very port-heavy city, obviously. Look at it on a map, and I've never been to Rotterdam. I'll admit, I've only ever been through it. But what I can tell you is that like to prove the thing that everyone cycles in the Netherlands, I remember just outside of it, like I could see this from the train station itself. There was like this huge bike. Okay, look at this. Look at this bike lot. This isn't even the one I'm talking about. This is another one in addition to the bike rack I'm talking about. It's a multi-story car park for bikes. And then there's bikes across the street. And then there's bikes tied to like random lampposts. And this isn't even the one I'm talking about. There is another. There's just bikes left. Look at this. They like their bikes, okay? They like their bikes. My great-great-grandfather built Birmingham, says Jay Birmingham. You know, I believe it. It has to be true, right? He's 1/4 Sri Lankan. I am, in fact, a quarter Sri Lankan. You now know my secret. Next up here, we've got Frankfurt, the Rhine-Ruhr Main region. It's the Main. It's called the Main River, but it's pronounced Main in German. But you know what? Do we care about the Germans? Apparently so. So Frankfurt is a city. I just want to mention this, full disclosure. I visited Frankfurt about 20 times in my life. Yeah, give or take. It's in that kind of region. So I've seen Frankfurt Airport a lot, which is one of the biggest airports in Europe. I'd say like 4 big airports, it's pretty good. I wouldn't recommend connecting there. If you like, actually, I'd say like it's a nice enough airport to connect. I wouldn't recommend going to Frankfurt though if you don't have a reason to be there. So yeah, the Frankfurt Airport, 17th largest city. Thank you, friends. So the 17th largest city is Frankfurt, and Frankfurt is like, so like again, bear in mind I've been there a lot. I say this from a position of like sort of love. Frankfurt is just a shithole. Like there's no way to describe it. Like so bear in mind when you go straight from the airport to the city, it's very close. It's very fast. I love that fast, efficient city. It's like it's a lovely train station, and then you're in the hooker district. All of these streets right here, you take one wrong turn and you don't know what is this in Comic Sans? Anyway, you take one wrong turn down these streets, and you end up immediately in like hooker town, where like things are loud, things are like, again, it's very, very hooker heavy, very immigrant heavy, very crime heavy, not in that order, not related to each other. And that's where like if you want a good central hotel, it has to be. So you have to stay in a bad place. But like, okay, you go closer towards the center. The Hauptwache is actually kind of nice to visit, I'd say. But the thing about, like the center of Frankfurt is there's like one small strip of center that's all beautiful. It's all like, look at this lovely old castle. There's so many great old things lying around here, you know. But there's always a but, right? It goes all the way to like, I'd say like it goes from like there to like there to like there-ish. There's even, by the way, right over here, the Central Bank of Europe. Oh, this is their logo. The actual bank's a bit further away. But there's a giant euro sign because the kind of like, I think this is like, this is not ironic, but it's like, it's bad taste on Europe's behalf. They put the central bank for all of Europe in Germany. Just saying. Plays into stereotypes, doesn't it? Have you been interrailing? Toy Cat, says Jack Morgan. I got an Interrail pass for 3 countries because it was really cheap. Belgium, Benelux, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. I wish I did more in retrospect, but we didn't. That's not a thing that happened. So yeah, basically, there's a nice central core, Frankfurt, but there are so many neighborhoods that are so ludicrously run down that it's like, how does this exist? How is this one of Germany's biggest cities? Like if I just show you one, for instance, I remember like this is the Messe. It's the biggest convention center in maybe all of Europe, and then it's like, oh yeah, but if you go to Gallus instead, one station over, let me show you this as a little example, and you're like, oh yeah, this is just sad. I look at this on the map, I'm like, oh, this is not great. Also, Google the Street View for Germany is super outdated because they banned it a while afterwards. In case you're curious, do the Benelux countries hate that name? I've always wondered. No, they have something called the Benelux Council, which I find fascinating. Anyway, what I'm trying to say right here is that there are many things to like about Frankfurt. No, wait. There are things to like about Frankfurt, and there are many things. that are true about Frankfurt, and those lists do not correlate in the slightest. Here's a Vapiano. That's nice. But no, what I'm just trying to say right here is, of all the cities I've been to in Europe, Frankfurt has never really, like, impressed me. I've never been like, oh, I love this city. I'd love to be here sometime. Because there are pretty things, but the pretty things are kind of few and far between. You know, again, sorry to say it. Hate to break it to you, Frankfurt. Probably the least nice city. Again, maybe this is me being bitter with another X story. But not a big fan of Frankfurt. But you know what I am a big fan of? The Greater Manchester area. Again, this is that thing about, like, what's the biggest city in England outside of London? Manchester and Birmingham are so close together that it always comes up with a different measurement depending on a different city depending on which measurement. So Manchester is a much bigger city based on my personal visiting experience. I can also say it's a much bigger city to just, like, go around and, like, again, if you're going to visit a city in the UK that's not London, Manchester is what I'd recommend above Birmingham, probably. Like, I don't know how you would explore Birmingham, but Manchester, you can do lots of great exploring. Oh, what is this? We're in a random pub, it looks like. What is that? It's a dive bar, question mark? But it's called dive. I like this, actually. I would really enjoy going to a pub like this. It's even got social distancing between the tables. I hate when pubs do this thing where they've got, like, the tables so close together that you can just hear everyone else. It's like, no, I want a conversation with my friends. Took a stud, so many ex-girlfriends. I think we've gone through 2 ex-girlfriends, right? Like, wouldn't it be weird if I did? You know, actually, wait, I'm going to change it back. I am a stud. I have so many ex-girlfriends. You know, if you give me some internet dollars, I can become your ex-girlfriend is a loser. If cereal is a soup, then you should Pop-Tarts be considered ravioli. Why did I respond to that? Why did I read that out loud? Anyway, so Manchester is a big city for football as well. They've got Manchester United, which is another team which is almost more well-known than the city, as well as Manchester City. They've got... I've actually been here a couple of times. One of the most awkward moments of my life. I can show you the train station. Oh yeah, I've told this story before, but now I can show you the train station. This is Manchester Deansgate. I remember it was in here. Can we go inside the train station? Can I show you the moment of the most awkward thing I've ever done? You're gonna love this. Okay, so this train station right here. I met a girl on, I think it was like it was on a dating service like 6 years ago maybe. Oh look, a remnant of a Roman wall, how nice. So I met her and I spoke to her and she's like, oh yeah, I did this thing recently called teppanyaki. It was really great. And then I was like, oh, I'd love to do that. They like cook the food, they flip it, they throw it in your mouth. And I was like, let's do that. So I went to this teppanyaki restaurant, right? And Sapporo teppanyaki. I've been to Sapporo since then. I like Sapporo. I want to go here again, actually, with someone that isn't. You know, maybe it's a bad idea. Anyway, so we went here, and then when we got there, they're like, oh, you want to do teppanyaki? You made a reservation, right? What's your name? And I'm like, didn't make a reservation for the day. Messed up. So we went again. We just ate, like, noodles, and then it's like, next time, we'll come back here, same place. Which is a terrible idea for a second date, just being, like, exactly the same thing as the first date. But that's what I did for my second date. It was a wonderful time. And so we went to this place. They did the teppanyaki. It was a great time. We didn't really, like, fully connect, I wouldn't say. But I was like, okay, if you don't kiss after the second date, they'll just assume that you're, like, gay or not into them. They're the only two. Even though we met on a dating site, I was like, okay, I've got to get a kiss in here. Don't know how I'm going to do it. So what I did, again, this is the worst thing in the world, is inside this very station, we, again, it's a nice station. It's, like, again, it's nice, it's old, it's great. I was like about to say, like, you know, we were saying goodbye, and then I'm like, oh god, this is the last moment you can do it. And then, like, I want to say, like, I kissed her, and then immediately as soon as we were done, I was like, goodbye. And then I turned around and, like, ran. I was just like, I can't be any close to this person. I prayed to my life they didn't look and see me. Like, I waited maybe like a half second for them to turn around. If they didn't turn around, if they waited and they saw, I literally ran away to my train platform being like, need to get out, need to get out, need to get out. And so yeah, as a result, when I see this train station, it's a whole thing. Also, wanted, all scrap today. Now you know. Anyone live in a historic city centre? I feel like living in a historic city centre is like really bad on a lot of levels because it's like, oh man, that's gotta be like a lot of fun. Anyway, so Manchester, this is their main station. I've walked around Manchester a lot. I actually think I got there really early. I'm poor, so all it goes this, but I hope you'll still be my e-girlfriend. Or ex-girlfriend. You know, I'll be your e-girlfriend, then your ex-girl. Wait, you should be my ex-girlfriend. I think that's how that one works. Friends. Oh, chicken tray bake for £4.86. Exclusively at Tesco, friends. Anyway, next up. This is why this video is taking so long. That story had nothing to do with Manchester. But what does have something to do with Manchester is the Athens metropolitan area. So Athens is like, again, it's got the history angle. It's like a hugely historic city in Greece. I wanted to go exclusive list, like the Acropolis of Athens is like, it's just been on the list of like things I need to see. The Parthenos, this just like super old place. This is where at one point this was a city-state. This is where democracy was founded and all the other modern day things. But nowadays it's associated with all the sad things that Greece gets associated with. Kind of a tragedy. I want to see Athens still. I would love to see it. Let's do a street view of an Athens McDonald's. There's got to be one, right? Let's do one. Actually, well, let's do it right now. Let's find one, and then when we go to Athens, I'll go there in person. It'll be great. Where are you, McDonald's? Where are you? I need you now more than ever. Maybe they just don't have... Maybe they're just not a big fan of McDonald's in Athens. Oh, this is a tragedy. This is all I want in my life. I guess we'll just type it in like a peasant. McDonald's Athens. So this is the closest McDonald's... Oh, man, that is a long distance to travel for McDonald's. But we'll do it. Look how nice it looks. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, don't see it. It's meant to be here. Is that it there? Yeah, that... You know, it's not a very nice McDonald's. Look at all these taxis, by the way. Jesus Christ. There is a lot... Today we learned that there is a region... Look how many... Why are they all just chilling there? Is this like a taxi strike, maybe? Or something like that? Or is it just like... This is just how taxis operate. They just go free wide into the street. Modern Greece is the most recent Greece tragedy. It is true. But you know what else is true? The Kiev metropolitan area. So I've been to Kiev. It's the only city in Ukraine I've been to. Again, Kiev tourism isn't there. Ukrainian tourism isn't a huge thing. But Kiev is fascinating for a lot of reasons. First of all, let's go to the Friendship of Nations Arch. Have I seen that in person? We'll find out when I get there. Oh yeah, I've seen this. I love this, like a symbol of the friendship that they want to have to the rest of Europe. But as well as also, I think that was something Soviet. But there's a lot of very interesting things about this, including the fact that there's like Kiev is built on a hill. By the way, I call it Kiev. I think they want it to be called Kyiv. That's the spelling they want. That's the pronunciation they want. So the 14th biggest city. Everyone just goes to McDonald's by taxi, says Pat's Prank Schools, by the way. That's the new theory. That's the new theory. Everyone in Athens catches a taxi to McDonald's. I don't know why I love that so much, but I do. So if you look at Kiev on a map, you might be on a... Wait, if we go to a mountainous map, maybe? Let's see if we can do that. Wait, there is definitely a map type for this. If we go to terrain, you can see that Kiev is like on this huge hill. It's like a really, really steep hill too. So there's like a train that just goes up and down the hill. And the metro in Kiev is like so deep below the ground. Look at this, like bulge, you know? Kiev is a bulgy city. So like many cities, there's an Independence Plaza and Independence Square in Kiev. This is where I stayed. I was only there for a couple of days and I didn't really get to explore Kiev so much. So I can say there's an Independence Square that's kind of beautiful. I remember, wait, this right here. I remember this market. There was like a market there. I guess it's not there anymore. I remember that and being like, oh yeah, I've got to go in there at some point and just not having time. And I also remember right here, there's a, I think it's a coffee store. Okay, I've told the story and it sounds fake, but like, I went to a hotel and where my hotel's address was, there was just a sex shop. And when I went, apparently it's like this one right here maybe. But when I went into the, when I went in there to ask about the hotel, they're like, I've never heard of a hotel here. And then I just got picked up in a car and taken to my actual hotel. It was the dodgiest thing I've ever been to. But there's my Kiev story. Kiev is a huge city in Ukraine. It's obviously super populated. And there's a lot of, I would say, like, as soon as Ukraine can get past the crisis of dealing with East versus West, Kiev will definitely be, like, one of the big cities of Europe. It is right now by the numbers. But in terms of cultural impact, Kiev is, like, you know, like, what if Kiev goes the Russian route, then it's just a Russian sphere city. But if it goes the European route, then it'd be like, oh yeah. Also look, the Motherland Monument. What a cute little thing. Let's look at it. I didn't see this in real life. Okay, that is excessive. That is just a tad excessive. But you know what? What isn't excessive is Ukraine's commitment to friendship among nations. And also, by the way, pro tip, I think I arrived at like the Kiev airport that's really far away from the city, and it was a whole problem getting to and from that. Just don't recommend it. There's 2 Kiev airports. Go to the one that's not a pain. But speaking of things that isn't a pain, let's go to the 16th. This can't be 16th. 13th biggest city, Rome. So things I know about Rome is that it wasn't built in a day. Next up here, we've got the Naples metropolitan area. So Naples is, you know, like, what can I mention about Rome? Like, it was the Roman thing. Did you know that? There's a country inside of Rome. That's wacky, right? No, let's not. Let's move on to the cities that you don't know things about. So Naples is a city that, like, actually it's the biggest city in Europe that I'd say I'm not like huge into. Like, I know that Naples is where Neapolitan food is from. Neapolitan ice cream. Like, Neapolitan is what you describe something from Naples. Like, Neapolitan is a verb that goes past it. The Naples-style pizzas is very different to the rest of the country. And also, again, this is like a South Italian city that isn't wildly, like, under-impoverished. Over-impoverished? Anyway, you can see the difference when you look at Naples compared to looking at Rome. And even, you know, earlier we did the street view of Turin. You can see that they feel like different countries almost. Like, they're tied together by being Italian, but Italy, like, being together as it is, it's kind of a weird concept when you realize that for most of history they've been apart, and even now they speak Italian, and otherwise economic disparities huge, cultural disparities are there, and yeah, it's fascinating to see, right? But look, pizzaioli, how nice. Neapolitan pizza is really good, but kind of soupy. Are we thinking of the same type of pizza? I feel like I'm going crazy now when you say something like that. Like, there's a soupy type of pizza? What? How are you eating your pizza? So wrong. Good food, though. My opinion, exactly. Speaking of my opinion, let's go to Berlin. Ich bin ein Berliner. Which, fun fact, is actually how you say I am a man from Berlin. But also, it's a donut. I love this, by the way. We're going to have to go into Google Maps again, and it's going to take me to London Airport. I knew it. You know what? I just really want the directions from my address to London City Airport. Fun fact, this is where I live. Do you want to see my house on Google Maps? You can't see my house. This is my house. It's a bit run down, sure, but it's not much, but it's mine. So anyway, the biggest, so Berlin is a city that needs no introduction. Obviously, it's the biggest city in Germany. Obviously, it was literally divided into 2 countries until 30 years ago. The funny thing is like, so I feel like I'm insulting German cities here. Munich is really nice. Cologne is great. Berlin is also a shithole, sadly. So yeah, no, Berlin is kind of this like up and coming city. Because even though it's the capital of its country, it should be a super fancy, rich, etc., etc. thing. And there are areas of Berlin that are that, like especially West Berlin. You see that a lot. But because it's got, like, half of Berlin is recovering from communism, it's got that kind of same effect as Bucharest and Budapest. Bucharest and Budapest, different cities. Oh, look, there's a Canada thing on the wall. But, like, because half it's recovering from that, it's this very cheap city to live in for a major capital city, if you're willing to live on the wrong side of the river. Or the right side, depending on your opinion. What I can say is that I went to a steak place that I was really underwhelmed by. So let me give you my recommend. I was there for 2 days. You know what? This is going to sound ridiculous. It's got the exact same story where I agreed to meet someone there and they didn't show up. So I was like, I'll see Berlin. So it's called Blockhaus am Alexanderplatz. It's a steakhouse. It claims to be good. They have the coolest drinking glasses I've ever drinking out of. But the steak was the most underwhelming for the price I've ever had. I was like, this vaguely tastes like beef. That's nice. So yeah, Blockhaus. Do not recommend as a steak restaurant. I recommend Nordsee though. It's like a chain thing. And hey, thank you, Amanda Ree, for £19.24. Whoa. Just like that cat. I need to get myself a party popper when the cat comes up. Should we do that? How much do you think a party popper costs? Less than £19.24, that's for sure. You didn't steal them. I should have stolen it. It's just because I was in Germany. If I wasn't in Germany, where one, I don't know how crimes work. Like, I never commit crimes in other countries, because, like, I feel like, ooh, I don't know if crime's legal here. Hey, thank you, cat girl. You know what? That's enough for a party popper. There's my party popper for you. But yeah, so that's things I recommend about Berlin. They have a Berlin Wall. They have On the east, you find loads of wacky food places. I've heard this statement before, and I really agree with it. The hood is where you find the good food, and half of Berlin is the hood. So there's a lot of good food there. So would recommend for that reason. And that good food does not include that steakhouse. But cool drinking glasses. If you value like drinking glasses above steak at a steakhouse, boy, do I have a recommendation for you. But you know what else I have a recommendation for you with? The Barcelona metropolitan area. Wait, have I been to all of these cities now? Been to. Really wish I could. Haven't been to. Yeah, you know what? Haven't been to Istanbul. It's Istanbul, not Constantinople. But you know what isn't Constantinople? The 9th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th biggest city in Europe. It's Barcelona. So the airport code is BCN. And Barcelona is the kind of capital of Catalonia. Catalonia is like a region of Spain, but they want to be their own country. And they're a lot wealthier than the rest of Spain, which is an interesting thing. They've got an F1 track. I know that. I watched a whole video about that yesterday. But as far as the actual... and I played a lot of games, so I've gone around that track a bunch of times. As far as the city itself, there's a lot of things I can... Actually, wait. I don't think I've been to... I feel like I've been to Barcelona, but I'm worrying now that like I might not have been. When would I have been to You know, okay, this is embarrassing, chat. I think I haven't been... I think I've been to Barcelona, but I haven't. Because I went through here once to go to Andorra. It's the closest major airport to Andorra. But I think I was in Madrid when I thought I was in Barcelona. Let's go to a random thing and let's see if I was. So, La Monumenta. Anyway, you know what I love about Catalonia and Barcelona as the major city in it. You know what? I really don't know if I've been here now. Chat, tell me, have I been to Barcelona? Tell me about my travels. It seems like the sort of place I have been. But let's go to the Hotel Catalonia, because you know what their domain extension will be? You'll love this one. Guess what the Catalonia domain extension would have to be? Because even though they're a sub-region, they get their own little thing. Can we find it on the front of their hotel? We can't. Whatever, it's .cat, that's my point. It's very cute. Rico.es. Anyway, so Barcelona, it's a super, like... rich city. It's like super rich compared to the rest of Spain, super rich compared to the rest of Europe. Fever dream. When you travel so much to Europe, it starts to look the same. Honestly, Barcelona and Madrid are cities I get confused a lot because even though they're very different, they're even different like places. They're both the big Spanish cities that are like competing for the same things. Like they both have big airports. They both have big cultural monuments. They're both Spanish. Once you like add it up enough, it's like. Hi TC, did you get
Hi TC, did you ever get your carbon monoxide thing fixed? I'm low-key stressed for you, lol.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't. Again, it was beeping, and I couldn't get it to stop beeping, so I had to take it off, and I don't know if I want to put it back on in case it starts beeping again. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, this is embarrassing, but we will move on to the next city that I do know about. So Cologne is again, I know about this because I play video games, and the biggest gaming convention in Europe is in Cologne. It's called Gamescom, not Gamescon. Gamescom. Why is it a com, actually? Is the German word for convention start with an M? And there's a place called Nips up here to the north. But yeah, so the Cologne Convention Center, the Köln Messe, is one of the biggest in Europe. It's absolutely huge. A lot of conventions are held here in Cologne for that reason. Here's the Rat House of Cologne. You know what? City Hall. See, it is a city hall. You know what? My ex-girlfriend was a lying bitch. Also, she told me wrongly about what a rat house is. You see what I did there? I'm very funny. But yeah, this is the Rat House, apparently. Hotel and Rat House. Huh. It's a nice hotel, but it's not the Rat House. So yeah, the interesting thing about Cologne, like the one thing about Cologne, every single person will spot and will blow your socks off. Because this is like maybe one of the first 5 European cities I traveled to, is the giant cathedral. You step out of the train station, you're like, oh, Germany's kind of interesting. And then you see this MFer, and you're like, yeah, actually, it's more than a bit interesting. Man, I want to get that experience in travel again. Like, this castle's like, remind me, like, man, when you don't know what you're going to find, and you find something that big, and you're just like, it's a Gothic grand cathedral with twin spires. It's a big thing. And because I always stay in Cologne when I go to Gamescom, I've been like 3 years now. I walk past it and I'm just like, oh god. It's like this. I usually think cathedrals are like nothing, but like this one defines like an entire city, and it's very lucky because Cologne was like blown up by bombs, and somehow the cathedral survived. So that's kind of fun in my opinion. Cologne as a city, I find hugely uninteresting. Sorry, friends. I want to love Cologne, I just don't. But they have a Hard Rock cafe, and I think I went here. Okay, do you want to know another travel story? Because you know what? What am I doing? Travel stories is what. I really like Cologne. I feel like there's some things to like about Cologne, like around the outside, not the sense so much. This was the first McDonald's I went to outside of the UK, and it wasn't because I wanted to. I went because a friend was like, let's get some food. And I was like, oh yeah, let's get some German, this, that, some currywurst. And he's like, oh, let's just go to McDonald's. And I was like, no. He's like, we'll just go to McDonald's. And I was like, fine. And I was like mad that he took us to McDonald's. And then I went there and I was like, everything's like so different. Like, look at this burger. What is this? Jedes product, jeden Tag. I think that's like today's product is produced today, if I had to guess. But look at this. They have like hot dogs. Everything about the German, like the ice cream is like expensive and actually good. There were so many differences, and I was like, actually, you know what, my man, you might be on something. And look who does McDonald's reviews now. Exactly right. Like, it's a reminder that like your instinct when you're traveling is not always correct. Also, bad China. Oh, big China. Somewhere around here, there's a I don't know why I remember this like in such intense detail. Last time I was in Cologne, I found a bubble tea place somewhere around here that was like so filled with Asian people that I was like, this is the good stuff. And I think I had one of the best bubble teas in my life. Let's find it actually. If I just search bubble tea store, we'll find Come By, Beauty, and Fan Tea. I think it's Fan Tea. I remember this place. I remember that like because I was just like so hot that I needed a cold drink. And actually, wait, unrelatedly, I've been to this random little convenience store, and I opened the freezer to look for ice cream, and the woman who ran the store came over and shut the door and was like, look through the glass. And I was like, ooh, that's the most passive-aggressive thing I've ever seen. Anyway, long story short, I like Cologne as a city, but I wouldn't recommend, like, I would say, like, there's a lot of things around the city, but the city itself is like, it's possible. It's possible. But you know what else? You know what isn't possible? The St. Petersburg city. So, the city of St. Petersburg, formerly known as Leningrad. Funny that they changed the name of that, huh? St. Petersburg is the second biggest city in Russia, and it's such a... It's on the... Hey, Eva, well, so... Amanda Ree, thank you for the £5 super chat. Either getting tipsy or suffering from early carbon monoxide asphyxiation. Oh, mum, I worry. Please fix your filling, get a new carbon monoxide detector. Supposedly, it doesn't even leak carbon monoxide. I did look into it, though. It's leaking water, not gas, which is good news. Actually, is it leaking gas, too? Who knows for sure? But no, I'm definitely doing really good. I'm not tipsy. There's no alcohol in my drink. I could put some in there, though. You know what? Friends of the internet, your concern... Here's my monkey skull. Here's my... If you're curious, this is orange juice, cranberry juice, and a little bit of Tizer. We're going to take some of the monkey skull. Actually, instead of the monkey skull, as much as I love this, if we're going to power through the rest of this video, we're going to do it... Ugh. I feel like this is a more fitting thing to go in with that. Are my hands small, or is the bottle of potato juice very big? These are the questions we're never going to know the answer to. We'll just put a little bit of that in there. There we go. That seems pretty appropriate to me. Leaking water can damage your floors and make them creak forever. Please fix it. Oh no, I've got like the water caught, and then I'm gonna have to like call someone tomorrow. Because even though like social distancing is a thing, it's a whole thing. I'm drinking a mix of drinks out of a fishbowl. That's what fishbowls are for. It's a party drink. Ooh, that's strong. Some serial killer stuff right there. If someone's concerned that I'm drinking alcohol, the only way to assure them of their concerns is to drink alcohol. It's the only fact that I can imagine. Imagine your college professor doing this during online class. Man, I would love to be a college professor, but like at a college where they couldn't fire me. Even if I like messed up, even if I like did the worst crime you can imagine. I'd love to just be there and be like, you know what? It's a drunk lesson day today. I'm gonna get drunk and tell you fun facts about my ex-wife. That would be This Is a College class, wouldn't it? Anyway, St. Petersburg. It's a super historic city named after Peter the Great. I guess he's St. Peter, whatever. It's named after Peter the Great. He wanted a new capital because Russia's always been centered around Moscow. Moscow, by the way. Americans call it Moscow, and it like sinks into my vocabulary because my accent's half American for some reason. Anyway, so St. Petersburg, they wanted to center it around somewhere with an actual port because ports are handy for trade. Peter the Great understood that Russia needed to be a modern European country, so he tried to sell the country here, and it didn't fully work. But what they have instead is a huge second city. Here's the Peter and Paul Fortress. Let's go look at it. Let's see how nice this is. Real nice, real nice. This is me after 2 more drinks. But yeah, St. Petersburg, city I've always wanted to see. Haven't seen it yet though. But you know, I have seen the Ruhr area. The Ruhr area? Rhine-Westphalia. So yeah, usually, fun fact, usually speaking, the Rhine-Ruhr area is combined together. So the biggest urban conglomeration in Europe is between Cologne, Dusseldorf, Duisburg, and Dortmund, and Wuppertal sometimes too, as well as Essen. There are 6 big individual cities that are all so close to each other that they combine into one epic big area. Also Bonn, the old capital of Germany. That Peter guy sounded pretty good. Fine, take a shot for every city you haven't been to. That sounds like a great idea. Also, we're in 7th. Thank you. The 7th biggest city is the 7th biggest metropolitan area isn't a single city. It's a multi-city core. So Essen, Duisburg, Dusseldorf, and Dortmund. They're so close together, they're one like big area. But again, usually you combine it with Cologne and Bonn too. So all I'll say is I've been to Dusseldorf. I went to Dortmund once. Wouldn't recommend it to a friend. Like for real, I remember Food Brother. Huh. I went to Dortmund and I live streamed it. Wait. I don't know where the stream was. It was probably my first channel. I live streamed my time in Dortmund and I was like, hey, do you want to see a city? And I was just like, I'm underwhelmed by this. So yeah, Dortmund. I only went there because I had an airport that I had to fly from because it was cheap. You know, I do a lot of things with cheap flights, including going to cities I don't like. I also have been to Dusseldorf very briefly. I think Dusseldorf's a little bit of a nice city. I'd like to see it for longer. Wuppertal has this interesting like flying tram system that I wanted to see forever. Like seriously, I mean, I think everyone knows it from like a Tom Scott video or whatever, right? But there's a flying, their trams fly in the sky. It's like a Disney ride, but it's how they get around the city. And it actually makes sense for this one city because they have the river as the one unindustrialized part of it. It's cool as heck. It's cool as heck. Say it with me, Dieseldorf. Anyway, so next up we have the 6th biggest city in Europe, the Milan metropolitan area. So Milan is all the way up here in the north, right? Who doesn't love Milan? I mean, fashion or something like that. No, Milan has the only stock exchange in Italy, I learned recently. Darcy, what's your opinion on driving on the left side versus right side of the road, which is superior? So, I mean, I would love to make an argument for why the left side is correct, but the right side of the road is literally called the right side, and no matter how much logic I give you, the right side will sound more right than the left side does. But as far as human eyes go, your right eye is usually dominant, which means driving on the left makes more sense because you see the other cars coming past you like that. Whereas when you drive on the right side, you see other cars coming past you like that, and you're slightly less. Like, the UK has some of the lowest passenger fatalities per, like, miles per capita, etc., etc. in the world. Is that due to driving on the left? We don't know for sure. We do know, though, that when you switch side of the road, no matter which side you switch from and to, you drive better than if you're driving on the same side. Anyway, this is Milan, has the only stock exchange in Italy, famous for fashion reasons, famous for finance reasons. Like, this is the rich Italian city. Usually that lines up with the capital, but in this case, like, here's Milan, here's Rome, halfway across the country from each other. In fact, Milan is significantly closer to, like, 4 or 5 other European countries than it is to the capital of its own. So, there's a wacky fact for you. And, except American ambassadors, says Andrew M. Too soon, man, too soon. American ambassadors cannot drive on the left side of the road, I can confirm. So next up, we've got the Madrid metropolitan area. So again, this is the 5th biggest city in Europe. Bear in mind that it's the only big city for anywhere in Spain that isn't on the coast, or at least near the edge of the country. It is a huge city that you can't really get the point across with until you realize, like, oh yeah, all of this is Madrid. It is a big boy country. And it showed up a video of mine recently. This drink got a lot worse when I added all that potato juice. Potatoes do not go with orange and cranberry. Today we learned. So yeah, the fifth biggest city in Europe is super, super, super interesting to me because as far as big cities, usually every big city around the world has such a great English proficiency. My experience is Madrid doesn't have that. Like I recommend it as a tourist if you can speak Spanish. Like you need to learn, you need to learn a healthy amount of Spanish to survive here. Not survive. I mean, you can eat food. Go to McDonald's, am I right? Here's a chocolate cafe I went to. On a date with the same girl that stranded me in Leeds that one time. Fun fact. I went here by myself once and I thought it was Barcelona. That's a fun time. They've got like scooters going around the place. I like that a lot. There's a huge park, Parque de El Retiro. Also here's something I asked in a video, like, what's this monument? Why is it called Plaza La Independencia? Independencia, and the answer is I forgot. But yeah, no, it's a super, super, super beautiful country. So many, super city, so many things, good things to say about it. But instead of saying any of them, how about we move into the next city, which is the Paris metropolitan area. So I can actually go from here to the rest of them. The Paris metropolitan area is huge. It's actually denser than any other city in Europe. I think it might be the densest city in the world, once you consider everything. Because if you look, Paris has a very clear ending point. And within that ending point, it is just dense. It is just packed, unpacked, unpacked, unpacked. Which is why, fun fact, they're having a bad time with the current, virus situation in the world. But what I can say is Paris is such a beautiful city that I thought I hated because, honestly, Paris has such a bad reputation around the world and around Europe for being, like, super unwelcoming to foreigners. But again, in the same way that, like, Madrid should be welcoming and, like, Paris shouldn't be, everyone I met in Paris, even the random French taco seller that I, spoke to at, like, 1 a.m. after a few drinks, he was friendly. The Arc de Triomphe. Actually, wait, I've been to a McDonald's near the Arc de Triomphe. This is my McDonald's tour of Europe. I hope you enjoy it. Just down the street, there is a McDonald's, if you would believe it. I mean, it's not a particularly hard thing to believe. But, yeah, there's McDonald's just down the street from the Arc de Triomphe, which means that you can eat, there we go, you can eat a really nice McDonald's. It's tasty stuff, by the way. It's not like generic McDonald's. This is good McDonald's. Because French McDonald's is so much better than most European countries. And you can look at the monument to this country's triumph. I don't know, like, I've always, like, had this, like, internal, like, French people. But, like, when you see, like, the blue, white, red lit up over that monument, and you're like, yeah, viva la France. And you're like, yeah, I like it a lot. Paris is also famous for, they have the Eiffel Tower. Don't go to the Eiffel Tower. You can't see the most famous thing in Paris from the Eiffel Tower, but there's a free park nearby it. Eat a picnic or something there, and you can look at the most famous thing in Paris. You don't have to wait in line for 2 hours. It's great. It's wonderful. And apparently you can't go on the grass. Climb over the fence. Who's going to stop you? French people don't agree with laws. Put on a yellow vest. Say it's a protest. Boom. And then finally, Disneyland Europe. Euro Disney, as it used to be called. When it lost a lot of money. Now it's just called Disneyland Paris, because people like that more. Is located here too. I've been to Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport more times. No, actually only once. In 4 days, I have a flight to Paris Charles de Gaulle that I don't imagine I'm going to be taking. So, relevant to me. The third biggest city in Europe is London. London's real big, yeah, mate. We talk about London so much on this channel, but London is a city I'm so grateful for living nearby. It is such a giant city. Like, it sprawls forever in every direction, and I love that about it. I love that it's not a city with just one area. Like, I'd say Covent Garden is like the good example of where tourists go in a place, which is fine. Like, it's actually nice. I take friends here sometimes. Like, my favorite burger place in London is near here. Wait, I think just to the south of this, it's called Meat Market, and it's amazing. It's just over here, Meat Liquor. It's near there, but like it's hidden on a like side street. You have to go through the back entrance. But there's this amazing meat place here. One of the only two, it's a dumpling store. Dai Tin Fung. I had it for the first time in Taiwan, and I was like, it's this famous type of dumpling that they only do in Taiwan. And then I learned that they have one restaurant outside of Taiwan, and it's in London, and I was like, hate my life. Went there in London, though, and it sucks, so made me feel a little bit better about myself. Fun fact, it's Toy Cat. This is like the major like tourist core. But then there's like, oh yeah, there's like a big business area, the City of London, as it's called, because London has a city within it, because London is a urban whole thing. Let's not mention it. So this is the City of London within London. It's super businessy, but also because it has like Roman roots. If you're walking around the streets here, one, it's super like, you know, posh and stuff. But two, if you like look around, you'll find like a bunch of old wall remnants from where, you know, there were city walls and stuff. So if I find you some here, maybe let's just try. Let's see if we find something. But like, yeah, you can see how it's like super fancy. It's got its own police, its whole own legal system, and everything else like that. Look how much nicer it is here. This is the Barbican, by the way. I think it's like this. Oh, look at that. There's the City of London crest. It's a nice sign that you're in like, oh yeah, the fancy bit of London. It's its own little city within the City of London. Super fun. There's like the kind of like hipstery corners of like Shoreditch over here, if you're curious, which is like where a lot of people go out to like drink from Essex. Every time I've been there, I've met so many people from Essex who are like, I'm just here from my stag do. I'm just here because my friends go here on the weekends, love. Well, I can't do an Essex accent, but they're over here. It's funny in my opinion. But then as well as that, you might be like, that's cool. Then there's like, oh yeah, on the north you find the train station side, and in the south you find Buckingham. I've walked past Buckingham Palace by mistake so many times, and it's like everything's just so close together in London that you can just go on a walk and you'll find something. And that's not true for very many cities in the world. Like, find something beautiful. Like, I love it a lot. I walk around London a bunch. I had a whole video planned just before this crisis. Like, I was going to walk across a tube station line. I would do it now, but I feel like that's illegal. Maybe we should do it anyway. But you know what else we're not going to do because it's illegal? Visit Istanbul in Turkey. So Istanbul is arguably not fully a European city because most of that population lives in Asia. But we'll humor it for now and we'll say, hey, it's Istanbul, not Constantinople. And we'll also say that this is one of those biggest... when you picture Turkey, you picture like something Erdogan, something, you know, like super oppressive, you know, regime. But the reality is like, you know, like Istanbul is this huge city. Like, look at... I said London sprawled. Look at the sprawl that you find here. Across 2 continents, by the way. It's a city that sprawls across continents. You hear that what I said there? It sprawls across continents. What's the deal with that, you might ask? So, yeah, you look around, it's wacky, it's interesting. There's like a few metros that go across it. The way that Istanbul works together as a city, I've tried to look into going there a few times, and every time I'm just like, oh man, that's cool. You know what, today, right now, let's plan my tourist trip to Istanbul. Eventually I'll have a reason to go there. Fly some Turkish Airlines, I'm sure. And, yeah, I gotta visit this, right? This is wacky, right? Look how European this is. But it's Istanbul. It's Turkey. It's a Middle Eastern country. But also it's not, because it's also slightly European. Man, what is anything that I'm looking at right here? I want to go to Istanbul for a really long time. I've had, like, a minor, like, worry about it. Like, oh, God, what if it's one of those countries where people approach you on the street and, like, don't take no for an answer, even when you say no is your answer? Which I guess is what don't take no for an answer means. But, like, when I look around it, I'm just like, oh, I need to be here. I need to explore the city on foot. And yeah, that's something I'm going to do. Also, something kebab, right? Is that a I want a kebab, you know? Let's go to Istanbul. Let's get me a kebab. It'll be great. How does he afford to go to this many cities? Says Nick Lounsbury. I am what people call wealthy AF. No, travel is just like my one big expense. Like besides my mortgage and electricity and food, I'd say travel's my only like major hobby. I've gone into climbing recently, but climbing's like pretty cheap. Cost me like £12 every 2 weeks, which I don't also do right now. But yes, I travel a lot. It's like my favorite thing to do. And because I can take time off and I can find the cheapest flights that way. Wait, right now actually. Let me just prove a point. Flights.google.com. So as you can see, if we go from London to Istanbul, and if you're one of those people who like only is allowed weekend, you want like a long weekend off. If we go from Friday till Monday, in fact not even Friday to Monday, Friday to Sunday, you want to go for a weekend break, it costs £126. If you go from a You know, like actually that might be the cheapest here for some reason. You know, have to prove me wrong, Google Maps. But if we go on a random Wednesday in June, it costs me £54, which is great. I can't go either way. And, that's interesting. We could take a stopover in Warsaw. You're just going to have a ton of extra money off this because you can't do your hobbies right now. Yeah, that's how it is. Like, I'm lucky enough to be able to do my full job. Arguably more of my job during lockdown. So after this, it'll be more. So now let's use a further away city like Sydney, Australia, right? And it's like, oh yeah, you could go... Imagine going to Australia and then coming back 2 days later. But like, if I go to Australia, right? A normal person has to be like, I'll go for 2 weeks because that sounds unbearable. And then they have to go from Friday to Sunday because they've got to maximize their break time. And it's like, oh god, a normal person has to pay £700 to go to Sydney, Australia. But if you're like, okay. Also, if you want to go like business or something, it's like, oh god, that's £4,000. That is a house deposit. But if you're like, oh yeah, but I'll fly from Amsterdam. I don't know why Amsterdam, I don't know. Or I'll fly from Stockholm, Sweden instead. And then I'm willing to be flexible with dates. And then all of a sudden you can like half that, for instance. And then you can use this for like an infinite number of things to be like, oh yeah, if you're willing to trade your time and like willing to be flexible with things, you can always get cheaper tickets. Because the least flexible people are the ones who are just like, I need a ticket and I need it tomorrow. Actually, how much would a ticket tomorrow cost? Actually, a ticket, yeah, tomorrow, not today. Cost me for this thing? And it's like, oh yeah, you just pay silly amounts at that point. Wait, you can go to Sydney via America? You go from Heathrow to New York, from New York to San Francisco, San Francisco to Sydney. That sounds like a pretty roundabout way to get there. I guess it's not that much more roundabout than... You know what, fun fact, you can go... But it's expensive is my point. Look how expensive that is. That's the cheapest option. The second cheapest is going via Japan, and then via the Middle East, and then via these cancelled flights that I don't know why they're showing up. Why would you tell me I can book flights that don't exist, friends? Anyway, what I'm trying to say right here is the first busiest metropolitan area in the Europes is Moscow. So Moscow, incorrectly called Moscow by filthy Americans, is the biggest city in Europe. Busiest would be airport. Biggest is by population. And Moscow is my flight to India was $1,500 and that was cheap, says Jessica. See, that is not my definition of cheap. That'd be my definition of like moderately priced for business. But anyway, Moscow is the biggest city in Europe. Number 1. Hooray! We got here. Woo! Moscow is the Russian pronunciation. I've looked into it and I don't think it is. Moscow. But anyway, Moscow. It's Mokba in Russian, okay? Moscow is a huge city. It's arguably Istanbul's not fully in Europe, so I don't really count it. Russia is not only got more people in the urban agglomeration area than like a London or something, but if we took like all of the cities from like 50 to 40 on this list, we'd be about even with Moscow. That is how big Moscow be in terms of people. It is a giant city. It's got so many different airports, and not because like some do different things. It just needs lots of different ways in and out. Airport down here somewhere. Another airport, yeah, airport over here down somewhere. Airport over here. There's just so many. Hey, thank you, Timotej. So many things needed for this, and obviously, like, it's one of those cities that is just as iconic as it is, big. Like, if we look at Red Square, everyone's seen Red Square in something, right? Like, here is Red Square. This giant wall of the Kremlin, this, like, super Russian-y church orthodoxy thing. You can see Lenin's dead... Can you see it on Google Maps? Please tell me you can see Lenin's mausoleum on Google Maps. If you can, that is too much. Okay, you can't. That's sad. But you can see Lenin's resting place. The size of this thing, the size, you can't comprehend it like until you see it in real life. That in the center of their capital city, they just have a huge square. The fact that the Kremlin is giant, like this huge, massive Kremlin. The fact that the city just goes on and on and on. Wait, over here, I have this free Soviet Kopek. And because this is all about stories today, because, you know, this doesn't make any sense regardless. There's a restaurant called Uzbekistan. But, so I remember where this was. I remember it was like one of these giant underpasses here. So if we look at these streets, the size of the streets in Russia are just so beyond, like in Moscow in particular, are so beyond ludicrous. But yeah, so if you want to cross the streets, there aren't like road crossing signs because it's just too big. Look how many lanes this is. This would make America proud. But I went down on this subway right here. Because fun fact, there's a McDonald's in that building somewhere. I went down into this subway right here. And underneath a vending machine, I found this coin for 3 Soviet kopecks. It seems almost fake that I've got this CCCP hammer and sickle coin that is semi-transparent, apparently. Okay, wait, let's get it focused. Let's get it to focus. CCCP hammer and sickle coin. It was minted in the year 1971. This coin is not only older than me, it's more than twice as old as I am. Or precisely twice as old as I am. No, it's more than twice as old as I am. No, it's exactly, wait, 48 years ago. It's almost exactly double my age. This random coin I found under a vending machine a few years ago. And I love that. It's crazy. So, yeah, there's a lot of cool things I can mention. Over here, I think, like, I remember taking a bus up to Sparrow Hill, I want to say. And I was like, there was a thing that tempted me to break the law, and then I was like, this is Russia. If you're going to break the law somewhere, Russia is not top of your place. Like, I want to say there's, like, a thing you could climb. I didn't climb it. I'm a good, not breaking the law person. I hope you're all proud of me, friends. But yeah, Moscow, Russia is just such a big city, and there's so much going on with it. I remember the Moscow Why did I go to the Moscow Planetarium? I don't know. Seems, but I did, and it's got this giant, like, Soviet moon outside the front of it. Again, you might say, what is a Soviet moon, friend? But allow me to show you what I mean by that. Apparently I can't. Okay, all those Street View things went away. But yeah, there's a giant, like, cosmonaut on the moon. It's crazy. Moscow is, in an alternate future where the Soviet Union wins, Moscow is just seen as like, oh yeah, this is the place where stuff is at. Also, there's the big park of culture and leisure right here, Gorky Park. Very funny. And also, I remember going for a walk of, like, fallen Soviet monuments. Whenever I find pictures of it, I'm like, what is this? You know, Russia's interesting. Now you know. I bet you didn't know before, and now you know right now. The biggest city in Europe is Moscow, one of the biggest cities in the world. And I hope you all enjoyed this video where I went through them. We went on a little bit of a transition on the side there about flights and how to make them cheap or not cheap. Fun fact, if you want to find the most expensive flight, man, £16,448. Seems like a good deal to me. If we do one way, I think it goes more expensive. Oh no, it's only 9.5 thousand. What a good deal. And we can put them in, like, Iranian rials or something. Is that IRL? I think it's IRL. Let's see if it will do it. It won't. So we'll put it in, like, we'll put it in something else, like, I don't know, just rub. Let's see how many rubles it costs to go to, from one way to Moscow to Sydney. Okay, you can't do that. That's not a choice you have. Anyway, so Kat is an old British, so he likes Russia. Oh yeah, Russia and Britain have, like, one of the oldest, like, bits of things. I had a lot tonight. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Yeah, it's like 1 AM. I was expecting this to be like an hour and a half, and we went for 2 hours and a half. So you're welcome, Internet. I could have sped through it, and I didn't. You're welcome, friendos. But I hope that you enjoyed things. I wonder if it's from Sydney. We almost, we more or less go straight up. I wonder too, actually. Wait, one sec, just as a fun little fact. Here is the distance between London and Moscow. Very far away. The only thing further away from me... Actually, Istanbul and Moscow are pretty much the same distance. What a suspicious coincidence. You know what else is a suspicious coincidence? As soon as I say thank you for watching, have a nice day, all of a sudden the stream ends. But no, thank you for showing up here on this long video. It won't be a very good video to watch back later, but I tried anyway. So the next one, if I do another one of these again, which I won't because this is a long time to talk about cities, then we can do that in the future. For now, thank you for watching. Second channel, don't care. Goodbye.